Apologies if you hear the vicious barking back there or outside, by the way, guys. Reggie is going crazy over the dog on the other side of the fence. I'm probably going to have to try to get him in a little bit. But welcome to the final installment of the episode discussion for Monsters. I can see TJ's super excited about it back there. Super excited that it's going to be over, probably. So he's Mr. Under 3 hours. I think he's going to try to prove CK wrong tonight. And I'll try to do my best to make this under 3 hours as well. The honest truth is, guys, I guess I partied too much with everybody last night. Didn't drink a drop. But I stayed up kind of late, and then my aunt came to visit today, and we went out for a late lunch and all that. And then I finally sat down to watch the remainder of these Monsters episodes and kept falling asleep. I woke up once and I was like, holy crap, is it 8 o'clock? I was like, I thought I'd been asleep for 30 minutes and I'd been asleep, I dozed off for like 5 maybe or something like that. But I really wish they'd get that mean dog in next door. It is a mean dog compared to mine. Reggie just goes crazy because it growls and barks like it's gonna eat him or something, and then he gets upset. Um, so hopefully they'll get it in so it'll stop bothering Reggie. Hey Texas, are you sick? I noticed a little sick looking emoji there. And hey Blissful. Oh, you had to restart your computer so you'll be back. Okay, gotcha. So I don't really have anything to speak of during a Daily Grindhouse segment. So we're probably going to nix that tonight. And TJ's giving the thumbs up about that because that means we'll get into the Monsters episodes faster. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead. Good Lord. I don't know how well you guys can hear that, but I can hear it, and it sounds like something's attacking something else out there. Sorry, wrong emoji. You said Texas. Well, I'm just glad you're not sick. But I am going to add TJ here real quick. Hey, TJ.
Hi, Dana. Happy day after your birthday.
Yeah. And Dana celebrated too much last night, and now I'm just wiped out.
I made some tea because last night was such a lowbrow show you had. No, I'm kidding.
It was, I mean, I don't always try to be like super professional on these shows. I try to keep them laid back and all that, but I get what you're saying. You're not saying that I had just a really bad show. It was just kind of, I came on here, wanted a lot of people to come on the stream. It was just a kind of party atmosphere. How the hell did we drop down from 7 to 4? What happened there?
I insulted everybody. They got all mad.
Nah, I don't think so. What kind of cup you got your tea in?
It's I also wonder. And see, it's all. It looks like it's 3. Looks like it's 3, but it's 1.
That's awesome. And so, what kind of shirt we got on tonight?
Toxic Zombies.
Oh man, that's Toxic Zombies. It's bad, but it's classic at the same time. I didn't even know anybody had a shirt for Toxic Zombies.
I do.
Awesome. Am I wrong, or is it John Amplis in the beginning of that movie at least?
You see, I don't know. Is he in Blood Eaters, aka Toxic Zombies?
For some reason, I was thinking he was at least in the beginning of it, but maybe I've got it confused with something else. Now I got to. Oh, not
yep, he's in the credits. Yep.
Is he? Okay, so that was the right one then. Okay. So without further ado, we're probably going to go ahead and get started with these
And without further ado,
I don't. This will be the final episodes of Monsters. Ain't you guys sad? You know that we're
CK
not
is it? He's thrilled.
doing any more of this.
He's like, why did you do any of it at all? I was about to try an accent, and I was like, nah, I don't think it.
I thought it was important that we kind of, talk about this. No, not a lot of people talk about monsters, and of course, CK would say, "Well, we all know why they don't talk about it."
Someone needs to go into all the streams and then edit each individual talk about each episode and do like graphics and do like clips and stuff. That's what someone should do. Not me, because I don't have time. But other than that, someone else should do that.
I would probably go back and do that, but then I'm afraid that my stream would get taken off there because they'd say, no, 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 you can't have clips. I would love to spice these things up. I'm surprised that the Cool in the Gang song didn't get my stream stopped. I didn't even play the whole song, but I played part of it, and I just kept waiting. I kept waiting for them to cut it off, or for somebody that was in the chat to tell me, oops, Dana's stream got cut off. So I tried to cut it at like about a minute in. I tried to cut the song off. Hopefully, the powers that be at YouTube won't, find out that I use that. But that was the perfect song to me because I always love that song. It's just a song that, like I said last night, makes me want to get up and dance and stuff. Of course, I wouldn't do that on the stream because everybody would leave if I did that. So, Blissful says she's enjoyed these, so that's good. I appreciate
that's
that.
One.
And Texas has been here for everyone. I think. Oh gosh,
oh, God, it's Uncle Bill.
He says if this ain't 6 hours long tonight, then you have failed the monster suit.
Now, which one is it? They're gonna have a battle. Is CK versus Uncle Bill on if it should be shorter or longer? And they're gonna be a tag team match too, or what are we gonna do?
Yeah, they should have a tag. Rip
the Iron Sheik passed away.
Yep, I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Billy Graham just died recently too. Did he just die?
We're losing wrestling people as fast as we are, I think, horror people. Some years it seems like a lot of the horror people pass away, and then you get a spell where a bunch of wrestlers passes away. So and singers. I mean, I think it just goes in cycles.
Yeah.
Uncle Bill said it bummed him out. People are dropping like flies now. Yeah, sometimes of the year it just seems like several people go at one time.
I think I've met all the head horror guys that were still alive at the time. I met Romero. I met Carpenter. Is anybody else who's still alive? Everybody else is dead, I think. Craven's dead. Hooper's dead.
Yeah. Romero's gone now.
Yep. Yeah, well, I met him, so yeah, that was good. And then there are people who should die, but they don't. No, I'm kidding.
like really mean, hateful people. Was that who you're talking about?
Yeah, I know a few, but I'm not gonna name names because
Right. Those people are so mean. That's why they get to stick around. So they're too mean to die. That was what was always told.
The 700 Club guy, was it Oral Robert? What's his name? Who was the?
Oh, Pat Robertson.
Pat Robertson. Yeah. Why is he? He's just holding on by.
That guy's gonna be around. That guy's crazy. But anyway, yeah. Uncle Bill brings up a good question. By the way, how the fuck is Carpenter the only one left alive out of that bunch?
Oh, I haven't met Raimi, but that's
He looks like low pan for real now. Oh my god!
That reminds me of Back to the Future when they did all the old age makeup. The one who played Biff looks so much like he does now as an old guy, and it's like, wow, they got that right, but everybody else they didn't get it right at all.
Yeah, good old Tom Wilson.
Anyway, we're making the stream too long by talking about other stuff. So let's.
So, all right, let's go ahead and get started with these episodes, which is going to include a Stephen King episode again, um, which I still enjoyed, and it's got Tom Noonan in it, but we'll get to that. Tom Noonan had something to do with more than one of these episodes.
Yeah, I think he directed too, didn't he? Yeah, he directed this first one that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, which is called
He wrote and directed. Yeah.
Malcolm, and it stars Ed Lauder. Yeah, this one was a little, I don't know, a little too weird. But I'm gonna kick this off and see what TJ has to say about it first.
Well, it's got Farley Granger in it.
Oh yeah, Farley Granger. And does Farley Granger have a ponytail in this? It looked like he had a little bitty ponytail. Was I just looking at that wrong?
I don't know. I can't remember. I wasn't looking at his hair. And then Lauder and this was in King Kong and Cujo, and he was in a ton of stuff. And Carol Shelley as Ed Lauder's wife. I was looking her up, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize she was in Wicked on Broadway. She was the first Madame Morrible, I think. So, and she died in 2018, but like she was like the first to be that character. I mean, I don't know if you know anything about Wicked, but
I've heard of it, but I don't think I've seen anything like, any stage shows or anything like that related to it.
I haven't either. I watched them free on YouTube. Anyway, I didn't have to I didn't have to sit behind some tall person or anything. So let's get into the episode. Malcolm. About Malcolm, who's a ex-musician, and he's not a happy man, and his wife's dreaming of the old days when they were in love, and he's not as in love with her as he used to be. And he starts getting these pains in his stomach, and they go to the doctor, and they remove this growth, and the growth is alive, and it looks like some kind of slug, bug creature, slimy thing. And it sort of comes to life.
I felt sorry for it because it was wanting somebody to help it all the time. It was almost like it was a pet or something almost. But
so it's more of like a character thing about the husband and wife, and he was always on the road, and even though that was his passion, she wanted him to be home, and so they sort of, I think they both resented each other. Sort of him, he gave up his number one passion for her, and then she's sort of gave up on him, kind of. Though in the episode she's trying to get back to him, but he says he seems to get further and further away from her. And then well, the big twist is that this creature is actually his part of him. It's like his old persona, basically. It's cute but gross, but it's also like, what is going on here? Because it talks, and she's asking it what it is, and it goes Malcolm, and then it's like it's because he's a musician. It has like, it speaks in like he plays, what does he play?
Is that an oboe, or what is that?
I don't know. It's not a flute, but it's.
I thought it was called an oboe, but I don't know.
Maybe that's what it is, but it makes the sound of his instrument, which is,
And a light comes out of his mouth before he has the surgery.
Mm-hmm. And so, it's.
Yeah, I think it's an oboe because I looked this up online.
Okay. Oboe, what an episode. Anyway, terrible joke. I mean, and then he ends up resenting his past self. So he basically, and I think this is, if you, I don't know if it's intentional, but if you look at this episode, because when I was like searching for it, I had a warning. It was like, if because it's sort of, he's offing himself. So I'm not going to say the S word, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It gave that warning when I was looking it up. I was like, really? And then as I was thinking about the episode, I was like, oh yeah, he's sort of fed up with his life and his everything that's going on, and he's sort of given up. So
Yeah,
it
giving out.
seems like that, and I was like, ooh, that's heavy. How dare they do this on a cute little alien monster show? Even like I said, that creature's kind of like a cute thing, and then we have this like heavy um, story if you really think about it. But I was like, I don't know if that was planned or not, but that's what I was thinking. And I was like, oh, ooh.
It was a rather dark episode. I mean, didn't start out the season. It didn't start out the disc even. It was somewhere towards the middle, but still, I don't know. I hated the part where he was. I mean, he was attacking himself because he was beating it, and then there was that weird scene where it was just a mass and it had lights going through it and it was like it was spinning around or something. And then
Yeah.
he just basically says goodbye to her and just collapses
Mm-hmm.
and he's done. At first, I thought that he looked like he was younger after he had dispatched that version of himself. And and I thought, well, is he gonna, go back to playing the oboe again and stuff like that? And then nope, it's not a happy ending. It just basically ends with her yelling his name, and then she's looking up at the ceiling and says, Malcolm, and then it's done, basically. So I don't know how I felt about the episode. It definitely wasn't one of my favorite episodes, and I'm with TJ. It was a little too dark for even this series and kind of bummed me out a little bit during it. So, yeah, if you're already feeling bad, don't watch this one. If you decide you want to watch some
There's
monsters.
no hope in this episode, so yeah, it's
No, there's no, I mean, there's no fun to the episode at all. I mean, Carly Grander's a little funny as the doctor, but other than that, it's just too dark for me. So let's move on to an episode that's a little less dark, and that's Household Gods. And honestly, I like this one. I like this one better than the Malcolm episode, but TJ, you go ahead and start talking about this one.
Well, it's about this family. Oops, somebody has feedback. Is that me?
Oh, I guess I didn't notice.
Oh, maybe let me turn off the Deadites. Oh, that helped. I turned off the YouTube part, and I just have.
Oh, I've done that before. Had that going, and it's.
I thought I had the sound off, but whatever. Anyway, yeah, it's Deborah Van Valkenburg playing Deborah. I just realized she's playing herself, basically. She's from the Warriors, and we had the episode Bond of Silk, which had her TV sister from Too Close for Comfort. She's the dark-haired one, Deborah Van Valkenburg. People probably know who she is. You've seen her in a lot of stuff. So yeah, she's a working mother. She has just started working from home because she's just had a baby, and she's doing it all. She's having her husband, and she's taking care of the house and the baby, and she's working. You see at the beginning of the episode, she's in bed on like a tight machine, and she's holding the baby, and she's making sure her husband gets up for work. And so she's like, "Yeah, I'm doing everything. I'm Superwoman." And her husband's going to work, and he's like, "Yeah, have fun and whatever." And then it turns into the Stepford Wives sort of. We have a neighbor who comes over, and she's kind of this. At first, she's like unassuming, and then all of a sudden, like that, she turns into sort of like a robotic zombie type of. And she's talking about the old gods, and how they don't like women trying to work and have a life. So as I'm watching the episode, and after I finished it, I was like, is this a parable for like um, for saying women should stay home and take care of their families and not go out and work? It seemed like they was going that way, but it's comedic, so they're making fun of it. But then again, it's not that comedic that it's a parody, that much of a parody. And I'm like, a little male chauvinism going on in this episode.
Yeah, so I can't remember. Did a man direct this one?
Probably. Yep. Michael Warren Powell. Oh, he's got 3 names. Now, a woman wrote it, but from script to screen, things change.
Yep, they do, and it could have been that. I don't know. I have a attack of the tiny spiders back here for the last couple of nights. I have no idea what is going on. They seem to have hatched out on my microphone, and they just keep dropping down around here. I don't know. I'm gonna have to spray or something.
Some spray, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
so we literally have a little. It's a troll meets Papa Smurf creature going on. It's goofy looking, and it looks like it should be in like I said, one of the Lord of the Rings movies or something like that. And it's sabotaging her perfect life of being able to do both, take care of her family and do her job. So it's kind of like, you ever wonder why sometimes you think the baby knows when you're about to fall asleep when it's really young and it starts crying? Well, there's this little troll guy that if you're not doing what he wants you to do, he'll make sure right as you fall asleep, shake that baby so it starts crying. I was like, oh, I like that little stuff kind of sprinkled out through the episode. So, like I said, if it was more comedic, it would be more fun. But I was just like, it's like thinking, it's a little sexist, but that's okay, whatever. Yeah, and then
they could get away with it back then. I don't think they could get away with it now. This was what, 90?
I think we're finally into 91 by now, right?
Oh, 91.
I think we're yeah. And then her stepmother, her mother-in-law shows up, and the mother-in-law, she's like, oh, we always never seen eye to eye because she's one of those. It's not a god; it's a troll. It's one of the trolls, sort of like people that are like, whatever. And then it ends with her giving up her job. She's just had a second baby because in the episode she goes, I only have one baby because it's just too much trouble having more than one. Because like her weird next door neighbor is like, oh, I have 3 children. And, it's like, and she's like one of the I used to be. She's like, oh yeah, she used to be an executive and now she has 3 kids. And it's like that's how it's very Stepford Wives. It's even sort of follows how the Stepford Wives movie goes. Sort of how it starts off with her and her family, and then she meets these new people, and then the men are sort of trying to control the women, and then it ends with the men taking over. And it's like somebody definitely watched the Stepford Wives when they wrote this episode.
Some of it seemed like, I don't know how many of you guys have seen When Harry Met Sally, but it's a movie I've talked about before. But there's one scene where all the ladies are sitting around talking, and Sally starts talking about how she broke up with her latest boyfriend because when they first got together, neither one of them wanted kids. Neither one of them wanted a family. They just wanted it to be them because they had decided, oh, well, we want to be able to just take a vacation when we want to and do all this stuff. And she said gradually over time, they never did things like make love on the kitchen floor. They didn't go off at a moment's notice for a vacation. And she decided she wanted a kid and he didn't. And so that's why they split up. But they were talking about how kids had taken, like friends of theirs had talked about, kids had taken every romantic impulse away from them because the kids kept them up all night and all that. So when you were talking about some of that stuff, TJ, that they're, having too many kids was too much work and it exhausted them, and trying to keep up with a career and all that. That made me think about that one scene in When Harry Met Sally when they were talking about that. So, um,
Also, there's a point where the troll, where she's sort of fighting back, and the troll kidnaps her child, and is like basically, "I'll give you your kid back if you decide, if you become, a servant to your family," which is also in the Stepford Wives, where
yeah,
Joanna's looking for her children because she wants to get out of Stepford because she knows something's going on. She's trying to take them away,
and
and
she knows somebody's got her babies,
yeah,
and she's yeah, the Stepford Wives is, I won't talk too much about this, but the Stepford Wives was probably a little more frightening back in the time when it came out as opposed to now. But I still find that whole movie frightening. The fact that the men were so devious. I wanted to like bitch slap her husband because
yeah,
he was okay at the beginning,
yeah.
but he was still kind of sarcastic towards Joanna
Hmm.
sometimes. And then by the time they had kind of corrupted his mind, the men's association had corrupted his mind, said, "Oh yeah, it's okay. It's okay to kill your wife and have a robot take her place. It'll be great." So
Yeah, there's only one moment in that movie where one of the husbands sort of has emotions. It's when I forget who the actor who plays the husband is, but it's Tina Louise's husband,
mhm,
who played Ginger. She's in this. This is
yeah,
one of the movies is where she was like, "See, I'm a serious actor. I was in the Stepford Wives. I'm not just Ginger. I'm not a comedian. I'm in a serious." Because
exactly.
she gets a serious like scene in that movie, anyways. So there's a scene where it's after she's sort of taken over, or at least shipped off to wherever they transform the women into robots, and the
Mhm,
husband's sort of like he's drained, and you see like he's in shock because if you
mhm.
see the end of the Stepford Wives, you'll know what he probably had to see. So, but after a couple of minutes, like the next scene, he's like, "Yeah, my wife should get rid of that tennis court and turn it into a swimming pool like I always wanted, and she's gonna
Yeah,
have some
exactly. This
just the
like
things that I want now, and she's not gonna be." Oh, and Dee Wallace is in that. She's the maid who gets no lines, and you see her for like 2 seconds, and then she's
oh,
fired. Yeah,
yeah,
she's at the beginning scene when the girls are like going to the neighbors and trying to get women to hang out with each other, and Tina
yeah.
she's Tina Louise's maid, and yeah, she's in that
I gotta go
very
back
small
and look
scene.
at that again because I've always loved that movie, but that movie has always been very creepy. And that near
The
to
ending
my
is like,
oh my gosh, when Joanna finally does break into the room where they've got her robot self,
yeah, she
and
confronts
the
herself,
yeah, the robot
those
is
black
not
eyes,
human.
and
Those black eyes, I will
yeah,
never forget that. And but she's got the perfect body. Like those are not
yeah, those are
human
fake. Those
boobs.
are she commented on like the making of. She's like, yeah, they put some fake breasts on, and not just this. See this. You can tell like she was really good in this role too because you can see her face is like she's given up. She's afraid, and she hands over the poker, and she's just given up, and she's like ready to be, you know. And
But
then the remake was terrible, but.
her husband, like he does a breakdown where he cries and stuff and kind of says he's sorry. But then there's one scene where
Yeah, but
he
he was
comes,
drunk. We
yeah,
say a
that
lot of stuff when we're
extends
drunk,
it.
guys, right?
But there was one scene earlier on where she calls him a bastard, son of a bitch, something, and he comes up off the chair and actually comes after her like he's gonna, how dare you, call
Mhm,
me
yeah, he's
that.
finally like taken over from all the guys, peer pressure and all that stuff.
Mhm.
I always wish there was a scene where even if it ended bad, she would because she doesn't really confront her husband. I don't remember I know because it was a book. I don't remember if she really confronts him in the book, but I wish there was a scene where she was like saying to him, "Look, do you love me or do you just love a shell and you
Mhm.
just want, yeah, so, how about
Do
just
they love an
divorce me instead
emotionally?
of trying to kill me, that kind of thing." But I thought that would have been a great emotional scene if she was just like, not begging, but like trying to reason with him and it's like, what do you really want? Because that's what it was all about. The whole
Mhm.
movie was
I
about.
read the book, but it's been years. I need to go
Yeah.
back and reread it. But
Anyway,
we'll go ahead and move on. I would love to
yeah,
do
we're done with
I
this episode.
would love to do a show though later on like women's lib type of movies and include that one and include some others. There's some others I could dig up, I'm sure. Rosemary's Baby would kind of be like that too.
Oh, by the way, this ends with, like I said, she's having her second baby and she's sitting around. They're quilting with the mother-in-law and the neighbor, and then when the husband goes to get his jacket out of the closet, and the creature hands it to him, and they both wink at each other. And I was like, okay, that's where it's like, all right, dudes, come on. I mean, geez.
Yeah, like, okay, you got what you wanted now, you know.
Yeah, it was just like I said, the big Papa Smurf troll creature was just like, it was goofy looking. Oh, and it was played by Michael J. Anderson, who was the man from Another Time from Twin Peaks.
Yeah,
so, anyway, yeah.
So yeah, I like this one better than the Malcolm episode, but I will be totally honest that I think that the episodes really started to fall off by this, because this was the last half of the last season. There would be no more monsters.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this happens to all shows. So that moves us to the Space Eaters episode. I'm just rereading the plot synopsis for this, and talking about a guy or a person who claims his brain was eaten and must fight off the alien invader responsible. I think the episode was a little bit better than that plot synopsis, but go ahead, TJ. You start.
It does have a goofy alien, but the rest of it's pretty good, I think. Mm-hmm. It's about these two friends, and I don't know if they're scientists, but they're intellectual friends, with their smoking jackets and talking, and like, yeah, so the Dow is up today. Do aliens exist, or is it just a figment of the government's imagination that they thrust upon us? Crap like that. And so this guy comes in, and he's got this big hole in his head, and he claims his creatures ate his brain, basically. And there's a part where they're trying to figure out what's in his head. So one of them grabs this like long pair of tweezers, and it goes into his head, and then the tweezers get sucked into the guy's head, and then he dies. But he's not really dead because there's this alien controlling him, and it's trying to take over the world as aliens do. It's like this long tentacle thing that comes out. If you ever seen, what is it? It's called the Trollenberg Terror, but what's the actual? What's the crawling eye? It's like the crawling eye creature.
Oh, that one.
A Mystery Science episode that was for first season, and it's one of those 50s sci-fi movies. So it's like this. So it's this giant. I just gave it. It's this giant eye with these tentacles, and it's trying to take over the world. We think it's an alien. By the end of the episode, we find out it's not an alien. It's one of those, spoiler. I'm sorry, but anyway, it's one of those, it's creatures that have been here that we just never noticed before, and they're finally rising up, which is sort of War of the Worlds, because in War of the Worlds, well, at least the original story, they were creatures that came to Earth millions of years ago, so they're already on Earth. So I guess they are aliens technically, but this is a war. That's what I was getting from this, like War of the Worlds and whatever. So
it's sort of like one of those old 50s sci-fi type of films is what I'm getting. And the title, The Space Eaters, that sounds like a 50s sci-fi thing too. So I think that's what this really was a throwback to all those 50s sci-fi movies. And I like that kind of stuff, but I don't know. I mean, technically there was a monster, but I don't know if this fit in with the whole monsters thing. But they had several episodes in all three of the seasons that were like that. That it's kind of like,
well, Malcolm is a creature, but it's not necessarily a monster. And like I said, Papa Smurf from the last episode was like, it's kind of goofy, and like they tried. I mean, if they weren't so in your face, these giant, because they're basically a giant circle. It's a volleyball with with pool noodles attached to it, trying to attack you. It looks a little bit better in the episode than I'm describing it, but it's if with more money, I think it could have been creepier. And because there's actually the scene where so they're going up into the attic because they hear a noise because it's obviously the aliens coming in, so they go to investigate like idiots. Two white guys go investigate something in the attic. Yeah. And there's a scene where one of the guys is like scared, and then you see the alien sort of like hovering over its head. Mm-hmm. That's a cool like shot. But when you see too much of the alien, it's like, it looks a little goofy. But
yeah. So again, I think that the creators of Monsters, the creators of these episodes, or whoever had the budget reins, probably just blew all the money on a few of the episodes that had the really cool effects. And I was like, oh, sorry guys, we don't have enough to make a really cool creature for this one. So this is what you get.
There's a creature that comes later, which is pretty good. And then one of the last, I think it might have been second to last. I can't remember. It was a nice. Well, when we get to it, I'll try to describe it. But also, this also reminds me of. You ever watch Futurama?
I know that's another thing I know of it, but I've never watched it.
There's another giant, like tentacle creature that sucks people's brains and takes them over, and that sort of reminded me of this too. So I'm wondering if whoever wrote that episode saw this when they were a kid or whatever, and I was like, oh, let's do a version of this.
It's definitely possible because, like I said, I think it's there's no doubt about it. It's a throwback to those types of films.
And I like the twist. The twist is kind of cute at the end where he saves his friend from the creature, and he cuts coming down the stairs, and he starts talking about what just happened, and he's like, I should have realized that the creature we just killed there, he wasn't here alone. And then you see another eye creature out, and then he turned. So he's walking down the stairs, and you only see one side of his head. So right there, if you're paying attention, something's up.
Yeah, something's going on the other side there.
Yeah. So he turns around, he's got the big hole in his head, and he's like, "Ha! I'm now one of the taken over by the alien now." And
yeah, you get one of those. You get one of those classic shots that they used all during these episodes. We're going to talk about another one of those classic shots on the Stephen King episode too. Tom Newman.
This is the creature.
Yep.
It's literally that.
So, is there anything else you want to say about Space Eaters, TJ, before we move on?
No, it was a fine episode. There's only 2 actors in it, and like I said, they're like kind of stuck up intellectual types, but yeah.
But that was okay because you get this kind of kooky creature that you're dealing with too.
This is an episode. If you woke up as a kid or even as an adult, like 2:20 in the morning, and you turned on the TV and you're sort of half awake, it could be scary.
Oh yeah. And too, if you were older and you did that, you might think, I think I'll just watch this, and see where it goes. Because I used to do that a lot. Not so much now. Now when I fall asleep, I'm out usually. That's why I freaked out when I dozed off for a few minutes and woke up. I thought, oh my gosh, is it past 8 o'clock? I didn't want to be late. So, moving on to the last episode on this disc, The Waiting Room. Another one of those where a man breaks his promise to a woman. Guys, don't ever break your promises to women because bad things will happen. So TJ, go ahead and we'll start talking about this one.
Well, it's starring John Saxon. Everybody loves John Saxon. Rest in peace. So this is a weird beginning. I'm thinking of the episode, and I'm like, who does this? So it's a newlywed couple going on their their honeymoon with the husband's father.
Yeah, very.
Yeah, I'm like, you lost me. Whatever happens the rest of the episode, I'm just like lost right now. It's just ridiculous. That doesn't happen. So, and what does he do? He takes him to the cottage or the hotel where him and his wife had their honeymoon. and then the son and daughter-in-law have the room where him and his wife conceived their child. I was like,
Yeah,
right. So it's shown from the woman's point of view, and if I was her, I'd be like, bitch, I'm getting out of here. This is crazy.
I would too.
Yeah. Maybe we shouldn't be married. Maybe we should break up right now. We haven't consummated. Let's annul this joint right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna go find a normal husband and a normal family.
Yeah, it's like, And the actress Lisa Walsh, is that right? She looks so familiar. I gotta look up who the hell she is. No, she was in an episode of Fear the Walking Dead. I didn't watch it, so I wouldn't remember she was in
I
that.
never watched Fear the Walking Dead unless it was like a few episodes that Steve watched, and I saw things here and there.
I watched the first episode, and I thought it was going to be before the outbreak of the zombies, but it's like right as it's happening. I was like, oh, I don't want to. Right. I already saw the zombie outbreak. I don't need to see it again. I can watch 50 movies that I already seen where I know that already happens. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, she's in Pet Sematary 2. She plays Amanda in Pet Sematary 2. Okay.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. That's a movie I need to watch again because I love that movie.
Yeah.
It's cheesy and all of that. But I'll tell you who makes that movie for me is Clancy Brown. Not Edward Furlong or anybody like that, but Clancy Brown.
Mm-hmm. I'm surprised Mary Lambert directed that. It just doesn't seem like the first movie at all.
No, and I went to the movies and saw Pet Sematary 2, and I think I was expecting more of Pet Sematary, and I was kind of disappointed at first, but then I really got into it. And I mean, if you don't like Clancy Brown in that and how off the wall batshit crazy he is,
he always
before and after he's dead. I mean, he just gets worse after he's dead. That whole dinner scene where the food's falling out of his mouth and he's laughing and everybody's laughing, and all of a sudden he just goes like that and everybody just stops.
Remember him in that movie Bad Boys from the 80s with what's his face? Yeah. Madonna's ex-husband. The hell's his name?
Is it Sean Penn?
Sean Penn, that's it. Mm-hmm. Where he's in jail and Kirstie Alley, not Kirstie Alley. Ally Sheedy is in it. Yeah, there's a scene where they're at the lunch table in the juvie, and he Clancy Brown picks his nose and he puts it on the macaroni and then he eats it. I was like, oh, this guy's a tough bastard. Also, that's sick as
yes. But I love Clancy Brown. I mean, he's just, I think he's great in everything he's in. He'll add something to anything. But he was just like extremely over the top in that one. And I don't know if Mary Lambert told him to do that or she just gave him general direction and he just went for it. But whatever, it worked. It worked to make that movie enjoyable. So
like I said, this starts off already weird. I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going to happen with the rest of this episode. And so John Saxon seems very like, even when he's pretending to be like, oh, this is where my wife, and it's like, but he's like, there's something behind his eyes. There's like I don't know, but a sadness, or maybe between fear and sadness, like whatever that in between thing is, he just, got that weird look in his eye. And the husband disappears. And we find out that when John Saxon came here with his wife, he starts talking to his daughter-in-law, and he's like, I've always been faithful to I love when people, this sentence is always weird when someone says this. I was always faithful to my wife, except for that one time when I cheated on her.
Yeah.
I was always faithful doesn't make any sense. But
no, it doesn't, because you've already admitted that you weren't faithful. So don't even say that.
So anyway, So they have a flashback where looks the exact same age he is now, which was like 22 years ago. Okay, John Saxon, you look really good for your age, or it looks really bad for his age both times. But anyway, that's another thing. It's just those things were just taking me out of the episode because I was like, when I was younger, I probably wasn't thinking about it that way because I wasn't that disenchanted with the world.
We've gotten. I think most of us in here have probably gotten disenchanted with the world by now.
We're all a little jaded. Anyway, so he starts telling the story how he sort of was wandering around the hotel and came into this room that never really existed, and this woman was never there, but he meets this woman and they have sex because he's faithful to his well, they just got married, so you have that grace period when you get married that if you haven't had sex with another woman, that's okay.
Sure, you got that grace.
Like, if he knows you're alone, when he's like, I'm going to get married to her, but I'm going to have this affair while I'm with my friends because they said I should do that. Anyway.
That guy's a douchebag on that movie anyway. So.
That's why I always count the end of that movie as a dream sequence that he has no right to come back and kill her if that's supposed to be him at the end of the episode. That's got to be a dream sequence. It even looks like a dream sequence because it's very like foggy looking and stuff like that. And
I don't know if they were trying to make it like the scene near the beginning of the movie where
they were bookending that. Yeah, that's what that was. Yeah, but anyway, so they basically have sex, and she's like stay with me forever or whatever, or promise me a baby or whatever. And he goes, yeah, I promise, and I'll always come and I'll come back to you. Meanwhile, he never comes back.
Nope. Goes off with his wife and
but then later on, while they're married, like I guess like a year later, 6 months later, it's probably like 9 months later or whatever, that he sees her again, like, because it's not just a hotel. She can appear to him anywhere. Like they say in the episode, it's got to be a dark room, and then she can appear into another like dimension. I guess she's in another dimension type of situation. So then he sees her again, and she's pregnant, and he's like, she's like, come back to me, and he's like, yeah, sure I will, honey. Bye. And
I gotta go back to my family. Yeah, bye. See you later.
So he escapes again, and then they come back to the present time, and basically she's kidnapped his son to get him to come back, and at this point he's like, no, I'm not going back. So he's sort of ditching his whole family now. John Saxon's he's not the most likable character in this.
No, I looked at him from the first scene, and there's something a little off about his character in this.
Yes. He's a dick, as I've said before. So basically the wife's trying to figure out what happened, and then she's trying to find her husband, and then eventually so she's in the hallway, she's trying to figure out how to get to the other dimension. So she starts, unscrewing the light bulbs, and as I'm watching this, like, oh yeah, I remember when light bulbs used to be hot, and you had to like take your shirt off to, like change a light bulb, or to take a light bulb out or whatever. And I was like,
I've used pot holders, by the way, to do that.
Now it's just like they make light bulbs where they don't get hot anymore.
Well, I have some that I use for like my reptiles. Those suckers get hot, and I do literally have to take a pot holder and unscrew one if I need to change it out, because if I notice it when it's just went out and I'm like, oh, I got to change it, it's still freaking hot when I go to unscrew the old one. But anyway.
When I did I worked on independent short film, and we had to switch out because we wanted like more theatrical looking lighting, so we had to change out all the incandescent bulbs and all the bulbs that change color with all regular bulbs. And it was like, because the look is different too. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
So anyway, she gets stuck in the world, and she makes a deal with the woman to get John Saxon to replace his son, who he should have been there in the first place. He should have sacrificed himself for his son. He's a dick. Anyway, so yeah, and then I guess you call it it's not really a twist. I mean, basically, it's the natural progression of the story where, hey, she sort of tricks John Saxon into giving himself up, and she gets the husband back, and the husband's like, "What happened?" She's like, "Oh, it's just a dream, honey. None of this ever happened." And then I forget what the context was, but he's like, "Oh, we owe whatever the O'Connell men always do the right thing," and yeah, she's like, "Yeah, sure, yeah, like your father did." Anyway, and then we see the father in the John Saxon's in the other dimension, and his deformed kid that she had, because she's sort of melting away because his promise to come back wasn't true, so she's becoming, more and more like she's sort of falling apart. Like half of her is like withering away. So, and then the son kind of looks like a cross between something from Hills Have Eyes and like the creature from Funhouse. That kind of, they look like that kind of.
Yeah. And that was a nasty looking creature on Funhouse.
Yeah.
Very
Does Sean Clark own the mask or something, like the original prosthetic mask or something like that? I think he owns that, and he owns the Frankenstein mask.
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway, I don't remember. I saw the clown from one of the clowns from the Poltergeist movie was going for in an auction for like $200,000 or something like that.
Man.
And then people in the Facebook comments were like, "I wouldn't pay that much money for something like that. That's ridiculous." And then I heard on the news, the actual from the TV show Cheers, the actual bar in the episode, where they sat down and drank, not the whole building, but the actual bar, sold for like $600,000. And I'm like, if someone spent that much for like some wood from a set, and somebody's complaining about $200,000 for the Poltergeist clown, I'm like, that's ridiculous. I don't know what the hell you. First of all, you don't have the money to afford either of them, so I don't know. I couldn't afford a piece of thread from a movie, much less. Anyway,
I couldn't afford a dust bunny from one of these movies. So, yeah, I guess have at it, whoever can afford these things. Yeah, I'll just say this episode was bizarre, and I second what TJ said about John Saxon's character being a dick in this one, because he was.
Yeah.
But the whole episode was just too bizarre for words. I don't even know how to begin to describe it or to add anything to it, just because it was like I would be asking questions if I married a guy and his father insisted on going on the honeymoon with us and like planning everything. Well, even if it wasn't the father, if it was the mother doing that, I would still think it was
either or. Yeah.
Yeah, I would, either one of the parents or the in-laws, I would say, no, something's not right here. Either we go on this honeymoon ourselves, or we're calling it quits right now, because this is crazy.
And the son went for this too. I think the mother had been dead or something like that, so I can maybe understand that he was close to his dad, so he's like, oh, whatever my dad says, I want to do to make him happy, because he no longer has his wife, kind of situation. But when they get into the room, and then he goes, oh yeah, this is where I conceived my son, and the wife is like, honey, what the fuck, bitch? That's what you should have said. Because this wasn't cable.
I think I would have said, I would have come up with some excuse. I've got to go get something from the car or something like that, and then I'd just leave. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that one was just bizarre. But if we move on, but this is kind of like going out of the frying pan into the fire with the first episode on disc 3, which is Leavings, but it does have Tony Shalhoub on it.
Yes,
As
Monk.
yeah, good old Monk, and also the taxi driver on Wings. That was the first
Oh,
thing.
that's right. Okay, and he's an alien in Men in Black. He's the one with the. He's
Yeah,
in the pawn shop, and his head grows back. I love that. I love that
and
scene.
wasn't he? Gosh, was he on the Frighteners or was he on one of those movies? I can't remember which one he was in now. Daggone. I know he was on
Um,
one of those.
he was Splinter's voice in the 2014 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, he was
Yeah,
Splinter the rat.
he did a lot. Yeah, he's a big voice. He's got one of those voices that really. Oh, he's the father in the 13 Ghosts remake.
That's what yeah, okay, that's what
Uh,
I'm remembering him in. But I always liked I guess I loved his character as Antonio on Wings because
mhm.
that was a character that grew for me. Like he started out, he was just on a handful of episodes, and then before you knew it, he was on every episode. They were always
Yeah,
having the interactions with Antonio.
and
Um,
he's in Adam Family Values too. Which,
okay. So yeah, this one is bizarre too, and I'm going to talk about something here in a minute, and I'm going to make sure that I saw it the way I saw it, because like I said, I kept dozing off and I would wake up and there'd be this weirdness on the screen. So I just want to make sure I saw what I thought I saw.
so I just had a comment.
Oh, yes, well,
Here.
we are on the final disc of these, okay? And then we'll be going on to something else. But
Mhm.
that'll probably take us a week or two to get some episodes watched. But anyway, this episode, like I said, is called Leavings, and I'm gonna let TJ start talking about it. And while he's doing that, I am gonna run to the restroom, and I will be right back.
So we start off with these two cops, and they're talking to their inspector, their chief inspector, and they brought in this homeless guy, and he's missing his arms, and they're showing the inspector. They're like, look at this guy, he's got no arms, and it looks like he was born this way because it's not like they were ripped off. It was like they had been smooth, like he had some kind of deformity or whatever, but they're like, we just saw this guy the day before, and he had his arms. He was trying to steal. I think he was stealing some pineapples, and he had them in his hands, and he was trying to get away with them. And we chased him down, and they're like, and the inspector's just like, he just doesn't believe. He's like, oh, this guy's probably always looked like this. He's like, no, and then so Tony Shalhoub's sort of doing all the talking, and his partner is sort of not saying anything because he doesn't want to cop to anything. See what I did? I forget. Anyway, so then they start talking about, well, we've seen other people with missing parts who we've seen, and there's this musician in the subway, and all of a sudden the next one day he has arms, the next day or one day he has fingers to play his instrument. Next day he has no more fingers, and they're talking about all these situations. So the inspector sort of is trying to figure out what's going on, and he's like, can I trust you guys? And they're like, what are you talking about? So the partner eventually starts saying, oh yeah, he's supporting Tony Shalhoub's character, Officer Mancini. He's like, yeah, we saw this, and he's like finally admitting, because sort of at the beginning, Tony Shalhoub's character looks like he's like crazy because his partner won't say anything. So the inspector's like, can I trust you guys? And they're like, what? Well, let's go to this secret back room that has all these locks on it. And Tony Shalhoub's like, I always wondered about that door with all the locks. And I'm like, okay, sure. Like if you're working somewhere and you just see this door that has 12 locks on it, and you don't go ask what the hell's going on. Anyway, so he's like, all right, I want you to sign these forms, these New York City forms that you're basically a gag order, so you won't tell what's going on. And they're like, okay, we're intrigued, but they're also a little cautious. But they're like, oh no, we're going to do this. So he takes them into this room and he starts showing them all these weird things. So there's a like a fish tank and it has all these hands, and the hands start moving, and he's like, these hands are alive, and the inspector's like, you probably just bumped into there, and he's like, I don't think so. And then one of them comes face to face with this head in the fish tank, and it's like this woman trying to kiss the officer from the other side of the tank, and the guy's like, yep, that's a woman's head. That's right. So they're like, what the hell is going on? So they're like, again, the guy's like, well, we want people working for us that we could trust. And they're like, okay, we'll do whatever. But then they just started getting too weirded out by the situation. And then, so there's a lot of body parts. The effects look pretty good in this, I think, for when they show the homeless guy with no arms. Like, it looks like, he actually doesn't have arms. Hands in a fish tank and the head in the fish tank. I mean, there's not much you can do with that. I mean, it's obviously someone behind the fish tank or whatever. So I mean, that's the gist of it. And then we find out the big twist is that the inspector and the city of New York has been in on this. They've been taking parts of people's bodies and making other people out of them, because the inspector's like, yeah, we want people who do what we want and don't have families and don't have, other places to go and other things to do, and to take them away from what we want them to do. And one of the deformed creatures is all stitched together. Tony Shalhoub earlier in the episode is like, yeah, one day we don't know if we saw what we saw, but we saw like somebody who looked like they were all different parts, because none of the parts matched, and the way it walked is like it was trying to move, but it couldn't because the body parts weren't, all the right shape, didn't match and whatever. And so at the end we see this creature, and it says Officer Parts on his name tag, which I thought was a funny thing, because he's all parts really. And the inspector's like, I can't trust you guys, can I? So, well, and then we're gonna have to kill you. And you see the deformed, put together cop kind of laughing maniacally, and then you hear him bang, 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 and that's the end of the episode.
Didn't you think though that some parts of it was kind of like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre like thing, because that put together, well, a Frankenstein episode too, because it's put together.
It's definitely, there's, if his name was Inspector Frankenstein, I wouldn't have been surprised, but he wasn't.
But I also, some of the way, even though it was like Leatherface was somebody that put dead people's faces on, their skin on and stuff like that, but still yet this sort of reminded me of Leatherface a little bit, the way his mouth looked and all of that. But here's the thing that I want to see if this is really what I saw, or I was just coming out of a sleep haze or whatever. But I could have sworn that I saw a woman's breast on this.
Yes,
side.
you did.
Okay, I did see that. Okay. Yeah. So I'm not.
He's putting on a shirt and half of it's a male chest and half of it's a female chest.
And I'm like, how? That was blatant. I mean, that
prosthetic. It was obvious prosthetic. I think that might have been how they got away with it, or they just snuck by the censors. I don't know.
Because I was like, holy cow. This show got away with a lot of stuff. It got away with almost showing boobs a lot of time. And then you got prosthetic or not, you got one.
Remember that episode where the girls, you could see her whole breast there. I mean,
I don't know how they did that. They must have paid somebody off or something. But
now, if it's not cable TV, that even if you're wearing you're literally wearing a fake chest, and even if you're doing it as a joke, you can't show the nipples, so they blur out the chest area. And I don't know how they got away with it. Maybe it didn't. Maybe they didn't register whoever was the censor, and they didn't think it looked female enough. But it did. You saw it.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I've got to ask somebody else about this. I got to ask TJ.
Yeah. Oh no, no. I was watching. I was like, how did they? Yeah. I was like, yeah. How did they get away with this?
But this episode was so kind of off the wall that I enjoyed it. Um,
Yeah.
it had so many, look, the hands in the tank and the woman's head and the mix and match officer, I guess is what I would call him. Yeah, see, that was so.
I don't know if you ever saw the movie. It was from 1989. It was called I Madman.
Yep, I do remember
That's
that.
what it reminded me of. That because it's this
Hmm.
book this book character from a book
Yep.
who's come to life, and he takes parts of people and he puts them on because I guess he's faceless or whatever. Like there's a he cuts the lips off of the main character's friend. So so when you see him attack her, he's got the fake collagen looking lips, and then it's like it's a interesting. That's a movie that no one really. I've never heard anybody talk about that movie, and
You know,
it's a pretty good movie actually.
that was a movie that had to grow on me because it was another one that when I watched it the first time around, I was like, "Yeah, I don't think I get this one." And then I waited a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
watched it again, and I appreciated it then. I think sometimes it just takes a while with some of these movies.
Yeah,
Um, and then either they grow on you or they don't. But
and it's got Jenny Wright from Near Dark.
yep, Jenny
She's the
Wright.
lead. She's the lead in it.
Um, so I guess we'll move on from leavings to
Mm.
desirable alien, which this was pretty bizarre too. And
This is a weird one. Yeah.
I still don't. I guess it tried to be sexy in parts, but all of it didn't really gel with me. Didn't really work for me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it was just too weird for me to enjoy. But I'll see what TJ thinks about it here.
Well, it's got Debbie Harry's in it,
Yeah, Debbie Harry is in
and
it.
a Monsters and Tales from the Dark Side alum, and Tales from the Dark Side movie also.
Yep.
And Luis, don't call me Gomez Guzman, is in it. He's a new the one everybody was controversial about that he was playing Gomez in the Wednesday show. Well, it was the Wednesday show. It wasn't the Addams Family show.
Right, exactly.
Um, so it's um, about this woman who's what the hell's her job? She's the one to make sure people aren't illegal aliens, whatever you
Yeah,
call it. Whatever immigration. She works for immigration.
yeah, immigration. Okay.
Played by Wendy McKenna from she's in Sister Act. She plays
Mm-hmm.
the little pipsqueak nun who doesn't like to talk. And she's in Air Bud and a bunch of other movies and stuff like that. Yeah, I was watching. I was like, she looks familiar. I was like, oh, she's from Sister Act. Duh. Yeah, and so she's on this case with this guy named Hercules. Which okay, sure.
We'll go with it.
And him and Louise Guzman plays Louise. There's another guy playing his own name because they couldn't think of someone else. And they sort of work together in this restaurant or whatever it is. And she's checking his Hercules's immigration stuff to make sure he's legal and all that stuff. And he's like he's sort of fallen in love with her, and he keeps trying to get her back to sort of because he's into her. She doesn't like him at first because she's trying to be professional. Then she's still not into him, but she's something about him that keeps drawing her back to him. And then Debbie Harry plays the doctor who's supposed to give him a physical for before he gets his papers to stay in the country or whatever. And she ends up having sex with him, and you don't really see it. She sort of has her shirt open, and she's sort of lying in the bed, and then the other character, sort of like she's now jealous. So obviously she does have a thing for him.
Right.
And she's like, "Oh, you're jealous with Miss Slutty Doctor here." She says something like that. And she's like, "Oh yeah, you said you liked me, but then you're having sex. You want to have sex with Miss Slutty Doctor here and all that stuff." And then she keeps going back to her, I guess her boss, who's like, he's trying to be the voice of reason here and trying to. Yeah, it gets to a point where. By the way, her boss is played by Rick Alvarez, who was in Ghost. He's sort of the guy that kills Patrick Swayze. He's been in a lot of movies too and stuff. But anyway, so he has. Meanwhile, Hercules has a secret that's why he didn't want to be examined, because the Debbie Harry really doesn't examine him. And Maggie,
no, he gets her distracted. That's why.
Yeah. So the character Maggie, she's sort of like, "What's up with you?" And he reveals something to her that we don't see. He opens his belt, but you don't see anything. But the commercial break ends with starts with a close up on her face, like she's like shocked. We find out in the next scene that he's a satyr, and Manos Hands of Fate, like Torgo. Everybody know who Torgo is? He's like he's like a sexy Torgo, I guess. I don't know. So she's trying to convince everybody that he's a satyr and he's something wrong with him, and so she ends up falling in love with him anyways, and they have sex. You don't see anything in her, but he like strips down, and he all of a sudden has. We don't see a transformation, but all of a sudden we see he has the big ram horns, and
Yeah, he sort of reminded me of like a devil like creature too in some ways.
He's Mr. Tumnus with big horns, and they have sex, and she's in love with him, and they're like, "Oh, but he's gonna go back, and he can't stay in the country." Because they're like, "Well, we can't do the immigration way of keeping you in the country because we have to have the physical, and if we don't have the physical, you can't become." I didn't know that was a thing. If you don't pass a physical, I thought you had to know the
Yeah, I thought it was like
the Pledge of Allegiance, because it opens with him singing like the national anthem or whatever it is.
Yeah, I didn't think a physical was part of the thing, but
for this episode it is. So the big surprise is she ends up. I know another way for you to stay in the country, and it ends with them being married. And she's like, "All you have to remember is till death do us part." So he doesn't want to be married, because he even says during the episode, "I just want to enjoy life with the women and stuff like that."
Yeah.
But she's like, "Nope, just me, honey."
Yeah, I'm getting you into the country, so you're mine forever.
It's a weird episode. It's just, okay, sure.
Yeah, this wasn't really one for me. I mean, it had, like we said, Debbie Harry was in it, and I mean, she does a good job. Because
the acting was fine, but it's like the episode's just weird.
Yeah,
100% weird.
So I don't know what else I can really add to that one, other than it was just okay. I'm kind of like TJ about that one. It was just okay. Which brings us to the next episode, which is A Face for Radio, that has Morton Downey Jr. in. I was trying to make sure I didn't say Robert Downey Jr. So instead of Morton Downey Jr. But TJ, would you say that he's kind of like sort of like a shock jock?
He's basically doing himself, but
yeah.
But his in the movie, he's more like Jerry Stiller was in Devil's Advocate. Yeah. He's sort of, but he has a show, a late night radio talk show, and it's sort of shock jockey, but it's more like he's talking about supernatural stuff. So it's like a podcast nowadays, where talking about the supernatural and but he's sort of debunking the supernatural.
Yeah, and he's sort of well, not sort of. He is a jerk towards these people that he has on his show.
Yeah,
pretty much.
But but his character's interesting because he's doing it for the radio. But then after the radio's like he's done, he's like, "Hey, whatever the name is, hey Sandy, thanks for coming in and being being the psychic of the day or whatever." And they're like, so there's this woman who's like, "Yeah, this serious. Like your life is the psychic woman who he has on the show. He's like, your life's in danger. You have to beware." And he's like, "Yeah, thanks for coming in. We'll see you like next week or whatever," kind of thing. Yeah, and then he's having an affair with his producer, who's in the booth. It's very like if you remember Frasier, it reminds me of Frasier because he's there and then there's Roz in the booth, sort of. Except they're not having an affair on Frasier, but in this one, he's definitely having sex with his hot '90s producer chick who looks very 90s heavy metal video type.
Oh yeah, MTV days type of stuff. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, did you like this episode, TJ? Or
this whole last of the season is just weird ass weirdness. I did like. First of all, I'm surprised Morton Downey Jr. was good in this. Like he had levels. He just wasn't straight one way type of acting. Like he had like levels to the character, and it got a little like campy, but I think he did a pretty good job. I don't know if he did any other acting. I remember his show from way back. He had a late night.
Yeah. Steve showed me like old clips of his old show.
Yeah, hookers and strippers.
Just like Jerry Springer and
he yelled at everybody. Jerry Springer never yelled at anybody. He yelled at people. Well, he had the Klan on one time. Well, that's another thing too. He was controversial back in the day because he supposedly was in a bathroom and he got attacked by skinheads and they like shaved his head and they wrote racist stuff on him or whatever. But he I guess he faked it. He didn't really get attacked. He was just trying to get some publicity back then. So he was a little shady, but.
So somebody else that was in this, and sorry, TJ, if you already mentioned this, but Laura Branigan.
I did not mention, but yes, she was good in this too.
She was.
Actress, singer. She sang Gloria back in the 80s. She passed away, I guess, early 90s?
She passed away 2004.
Okay. Oh, that late? I thought she died earlier than that. But yeah, I think she had like heart disease or something. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
She was a great singer.
Oh, she had a brain aneurysm.
Oh, ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, she was only 47 years old when she died, so she wasn't very old.
She did a few movies and TV things as an actress. She was on an episode of
she was the same age as I am now. I just turned
54?
61, whatever.
80, 86.
Yeah, it's gonna keep going. I'm gonna be 100 before long.
But she's pretty. I think she didn't have a lot. I mean, her character's sort of like aloof and kind of weird in this, but I think she did a pretty good job.
Yeah, and again,
she was in an episode of Chips. Her and what's his face? They like sang a song. What was it? What's his name? What's the actor from Chips?
Was it? Is Eric Estrada on that?
Eric Estrada, that's his name, right? Okay. They sang like one of her songs. They did a duet. I remember in the episode. That was like, okay, Eric Estrada. Yeah. I mean, I think he had an okay voice. I don't remember his voice, but I remember him like trying to be a singer at some point. But he never like cut an album like David Hasselhoff did or whatever.
I'm surprised that like I go to old record stores quite a bit, you know, where they sell old records, pawn shops and different places, Goodwills, and you would be shocked at the number of people that were primarily actors and actresses, but they did maybe one album or a couple of albums or something. Like, I think I already talked about this. Adrian Zemed did an album one time.
Yeah.
And the picture on it, I thought Adrian Zebeda was hot at one time, but this picture is not very good on this album cover. I
Ah,
don't know what they were going for, but you know what? It probably would have been better if they kind of sexed him up a little bit more or something for it. I don't know,
yeah.
but there have been several people that I found their records, and I'll be like, "Hey, Steve, so and so did a record at one time." I mean, how many records did Eddie Murphy do? Did he do more than one? I
I
had
don't.
one of his.
He did that "Party All the Time"
Yeah,
song.
I had that
Party all the time,
on
party all
that.
the time, party all the
Did he
time.
do that with Rick James? Was that something he did?
Yeah, yeah, he did. Yeah, I think he probably had. I don't know if he had more than one. Did he have a couple albums? I know he had a few singles, and then he was in Dreamgirls where he sang, which he actually has a good voice. You
Oh
would
yeah.
he did kind of 80s fluffy music, and he didn't really sing, but when he did Dreamgirls, he really could sing. I was like, wow, I was shocked that he really had that kind of voice.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah,
Blissful says,
whatever age you are.
Blissful says he was wearing a shirt, total mood killer. Yeah, exactly. I think she's talking about Adrian Smith. Oh man. Yeah, pick an age, any age. That's right. So, yeah, I these episodes are just so bizarre that like I really can't add anything to them. I mean, just basically what TJ's telling you. Yep, that's what happened on these episodes.
Why
Um,
do good girls like bad? Now I'm thinking of that damn song. Why do good girls like bad boys?
I thought it was better when he sang "Little Demon," though. That was where he was sexy because he was taking his shirt off and
Yeah. Well, there was that girl group that ripped off the B-52's look. What?
oh yeah.
Um,
So, um,
so anyway, we didn't really talk about the episode.
yeah,
So yeah, so like I said, he so the second woman comes in, which is Laura Branigan, and she's like, so the producer's like, yeah, there's this woman who says she has a monster in a box. Like, he's like, okay, let's bring this woman in, and she's sexy Laura Branigan, and he's basically hitting on her the whole thing, and then her
is it
his
this creature?
yes, that's the creature.
All right.
And his producer is getting jealous because they're supposed to have dinner after this show. Meanwhile, he's hitting on Laura Branigan with the creature in a box, and he's like, well, after her sexy talk, she's like, yeah, I found this creature, and I think it's an alien, or it's a creature from another world or whatever. I don't know. She's really talking it up, and he's like, all right, let's see this creature. So they open she has it's sort of this leather box or whatever, that like a leather top or whatever, and she takes it off, and you see this creature, and he's like, okay, whatever. But then it starts moving, so it's like, all right, it's not just like a thing in a box, and like, how could she have this? How could it move if it's not real? So obviously, in the story,
Right.
obviously it's animatronics and whatever. So she's like, yeah, it's this evil creature from another world, and he sort of looks at it, and it talks, and it says, "Don't trust her. She's evil, evil." And it's goofy, but it's like I'm still like intrigued. I'm like, okay, so what's going on with this episode? Is she a witch, or So you're like, all right, she doesn't seem like a witch, but then this is monsters, so obviously, something's up. So he's still hitting on her, and then he has a fight with the producer, and she's like pissed off, so she ends up leaving, and then he's stuck there alone with the creature and her, and then we find out, yeah, there's more to her than meets the eye.
Yep.
And the thing is we don't know exactly what she is, because so she hi 71. So he's like, well, I can't remember what the situation is, but she's like, he's a creature that sucks evil out. That's a weird way to put it. It's a creature that absorbs. That's the word. Absorbs evil, and you know, and there's not a trace of what it was before. So it basically takes on whatever the essence of the person that it absorbs. And guess what? Morton Downey Jr. is the next meal on the creature's plate, basically, and it ends with him coming face to face with the creature, and then you see it's sometime later, and she's on another talk show. It's a radio. It's a country western station. This country boy is like, hey, welcome to my show, honey. And she's sort of dressed like a cowboy. She takes her hat off, and she's like, one of those reveals where her hair comes down and it's like a really sexy look. And she's like, hi, I'm here to show you this creature. And then the creature, he looks at the creature, and it has Morton Downey Jr.'s voice, and it's like, don't trust her. She's a witch. She's evil. She's evil. And it ends like that. You don't know if she's an actual person who's goes around and finds people who are sort of not great people and gets them out of the world, or she's really evil and she's just killing people at whim,
Yeah, just randomly going around to these different radio stations and
Yeah.
killing these late night radio hosts off because that's how she gets her kicks. I mean, I guess you could look at it either way. But goofy episode. I mean, Laura Branigan was good in it. Even Morton Downey Jr. was good in it.
Yeah. When it came down to the creature, it's like, okay. When it stopped, if it didn't talk, I think it would have worked out better. But the whole, it's just like moving around. It's not like it's articulating at least the creature in the first thing we were talking about, the mouth moved. It was like, welcome. At least
I know it's getting. I mean, the picture looks pretty cool there. It kind of looked like a spider to me there, but obviously not. But so yeah. Anything else you want to say about that episode, TJ? Other than it's bizarre as hell.
Yeah, it's weird. It's another weird one.
So. Moving on to Werewolf of Hollywood, not Werewolf of London, but Werewolf of Hollywood. This one I thought had a cool werewolf creature or creatures in it.
Yes, I thought so too. Yeah.
So they must have got some more money.
This is where they took money from the Gods episode, and they just put the guy's body, and
and they were going to put it all into this. So, TJ, take it away with Werewolf of Hollywood.
Starring the late great Richard Belzer. So he is a horror writer. Shocker! I'm surprised this wasn't written by Stephen King, but it wasn't. And he's a script writer, Richard Belzer, and he gets a visit from this girl, Vicky. She's another 90s video vixen looking. She's got the short leather dress and the belts, and she's got the teased up big hair. She's Kelly Bundy going to the corner store to have a date, kind of look. Yes. So she's there to help him rewrite this script of this horror movie producer they have, and he's got this werewolf script, and then his boss sort of comes and says, we don't really like his script, so we want you to change it and just we want it the way we want it. So it's
typical Hollywood type.
Yeah, it's a very good behind the scenes of people trying to get a movie made or whatever, and how the people don't want what you want, regardless. So this is actually a great one to watch, considering the big writer strike that's going on and everything like that. Which I also heard that the actors are trying to get together to do their own strike because of. with streaming and streaming services and stuff, they're writers get the shaft on that because they get nothing really. So I understand them being upset, and then there's the whole if you don't get the same residuals like you would on a network TV show that you get on like a Netflix show or whatever. That's why I'm surprised that the kids from like Stranger Things like made money off of that show, because like it was like a streaming service and whatever. But I don't think those kids are fine.
Yeah, I think because a lot of them are getting other careers doing other things other than Stranger Things. That's why Stranger Things is going to soon be over. I mean,
it's got the last season, and then there's going to be a spin-off show.
So I don't know if the spin-off show will be as good. It's probably not going to be as good as the original show, but
if they spun off the two girls, I would love that. The Nancy and Robin. I would watch the Nancy and Robin show.
Oh, well, that would probably work for me.
That would be a good show. I would watch that.
They probably won't do that, though. They'll probably completely crazy.
And Millie Bobby Brown, she's like a producer, and she does her own producers. She's probably I think she's probably the richest out of the whole cast. I mean, she's hanging out with Mariah Carey, for crying out loud.
Well,
she was on a talk show and she talked about, she was on like Seth Meyers or whatever, one of those shows, and he's like, I heard there's a show, there's a something about when you have dinner with Mariah Carey, and like, when you go, she's like, I'm not going to do an Australian accent, but she's like, when you hang out with Mariah Carey, she comes up to you during like eating Chinese takeout and going, just for no reason. And I'm like, okay, you made it when you're hanging out and having Chinese food with freaking Mariah Carey.
Yeah, but the one that bothers me the most, and his character was always fine in Stranger Things, but it's dang Finn Wolfhard. It's like
that name.
Well, that name too. But that kid now, he acts like, and maybe it's just me, but I think he acts like the biggest douchebag now.
Well, he was in the Ghostbusters franchise, and he was in It, right? Wasn't he in It, the remake of It?
I think so.
Yeah,
I believe so. He was. But it just, I mean, is it just me, or does he seem like a little bit of an asshole when they do interviews with him now? Like he thinks, oh, I'm hot shit now.
He looks like Joey Ramone.
I didn't think about that.
He looks he's got Joey's nose and his face shape, and he's tall and lanky looking. They need to do a biopic of the Ramones, and he needs to play Joey before he gets too old. He looks exactly. I'm like, if they did a remake of Rock and Roll High School, not a sequel with Corey Feldman, if they did a serious, he could be Joey Ramone. I'm sorry, but anyway.
Yeah. So we'll get off the whole thing like that. But
anyway, this episode with Richard Belzer. So he's writing the script, and it's a werewolf script, and him and this girl Vicky are figuring out that the script seems like it's not fiction because it's using stuff that's been in the news, but it's written like an account and not a version that's a fake, that a Hollywood version of a story. It seems like that's what Richard Belzer's character says. It's like he's written stuff that's really happening, and he's thinking, oh, this must be about the producer guy who thinks is a werewolf. And so him and the girl start investigating, and they actually come across a werewolf, and he gets attacked because this is more of a comedic episode than any of the other episodes, I think. It's Richard Belzer, for crying out loud. And there's like, I like the scene where she's like, oh, there's a noise outside, and it's like, okay, they're both horror writers, and it's like, why would you go out and investigate a horror? But he's like, you go, and she's like, no, you're the dude, you go. So he's sort of like almost pushing her in front of him and going, yeah, you go. But and then he goes and investigates, and he sees the werewolf, and and it snags its like arm on this like nail that's sticking out. And he's like the next day or whatever, and he's talking to the girl, and he's like, I bet if we like did some kind of forensics thing, we'd find like the threads of a jacket and the wolf hair, and they probably match this guy. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and it's sort of they're investigating, and then we come to the conclusion where we find out that the big twist is that the guy is a werewolf, and he's killed the other producer guy, Richard Belzer's boss, and Vicky is like, okay, I'm going to give you this gun with silver bullets, and you'll be able to go out and kill the werewolf. Mm. And he starts shooting the werewolf, and the werewolf's like, nope, sorry. And he's like, oh shit, I guess these aren't silver bullets. And he before he shoots the guy, he's sort of like, he does one of those, he's like, all right, we'll make a deal. I mean, you're the werewolf, I know you're the werewolf, but let's make a deal and, make me a famous writer. And he's like, I'll make you a famous producer, and, you'll work for me, and I won't kill you. Because, he's the werewolf, and he's like, all right, I won't kill you. And then Richard Belzer does well, that's a cool offer, but I want to direct. And the guy comes out of the shadows, and he's got the fangs, and he's like, why do they always want to direct? Exactly. And then he turns into the werewolf and attacks him, and then Richard Belzer shoots him, and it doesn't work, and then he chases him to his office, where it's set up where he has this this trophy. It's the writer's award. So it's this block, and it has a pen sticking out of it. And they tell you early in the episode, it's made out of silver. It's full silver, this statue. But we're going to put this back on the counter, and it's not going to come up until the end, where it's like he gets attacked by the werewolf, and what happens? He uses the silver.
But all the time they were talking about it being made of silver, it was wink, wink all the time. Because
this isn't going to be used later on in the episode, is it? No. And then, the second twist is that Vicky is the grand niece of the guy who's the werewolf. Mm-hmm. And it ends with her fangs, and, she's like, she's like, haha, I'm a werewolf, because it runs in the family. Which it's cute. It's a cute ending, but it's like, yeah, we kind of figured out I figured out earlier that, yeah, she's a werewolf too.
It sort of reminds me of a little lighter version of what happens to Dee Wallace's character at the end of The Howling.
Yeah, except she didn't want to be a werewolf. In this one, she's already a werewolf.
Exactly.
It reminded me more of that Mystery Science episode with the werewolf.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like it's like they fight the werewolves and win, and then at the end they're both werewolves, and it's like, yeah, we saw she's a werewolf, we get it, So, but yeah, this was a better episode than some of the episodes.
This one was fun. It wasn't just all out bizarre, and it did technically, I guess we would refer to werewolves as monsters. Typically, they're monsters. Or shapeshifters, or whatever you want to call them. But
in this one, the monster was the studio system.
The Hollywood studio system, exactly. Yeah. So moving on to the next episode, we're moving through these pretty quickly, guys. We ain't even 2 hours in. We're moving through these pretty quickly, so we may make it under 3 hours.
We can't make my name a lie, can we?
No, we can't. So this one is called Talk Nice to Me. And this one, we talked about an episode earlier that was sexist. This one, the main guy is a womanizer. So what usually happens to womanizers in these different episodes, something bad usually happens to them.
Yeah.
So I'll turn it over to TJ to start talking about this episode.
Stars Ed Marinero as Martin. He was on Hill Street Blues, a Dynasty. I think he played Joey Buttafuoco in the Amy Fisher story. Yeah, he played Joey Buttafuoco in
I knew he looked
one of
familiar.
the Amy Fisher stories.
Yeah, there were a couple of them. Wasn't one of them Drew Barrymore played Amy Fisher?
Yeah. And one of them, what the hell was her name? I should know. From Who's the Boss? Alyssa Milano played
Alyssa Milano.
later.
Yeah.
And then the version he did was some actor named Noel Park. I don't know who the hell she is.
No.
But yeah, he looks like he was also on when Laverne and Shirley moved to California. He was in that season. That was like a couple of those seasons.
Okay, yeah.
When the show was going down the hill. But yeah, so like you said, he's a womanizer. He's got this one girl who's like, you know, he's played around with her emotions before, but she's one of those women that keeps coming back, you know, because there's something about him. Even though I guess he's not that suave in this, because he sort of comes off. He's not a dick. He's not that much of a dick.
No,
but
he's slimy.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. So he starts getting these phone calls, and this woman sort of harassing him, and it gets worse and worse. This is pre. I guess caller ID came later in the 90s.
Yeah, I'm not sure what.
Because there's no caller ID in this. Anyway, there's a mysterious voice on the phone, which I didn't realize until I read the credits that it was played by Tina Louise from. I didn't realize talking about her earlier would lead into this episode, but yeah, she's this mysterious, sultry, sexy voice on the phone. This also stars David Spielberg, who was in Christine and some other stuff. So yeah, and it sort of starts ruining his life. Like I said, it's ruining his womanizing. It's ruining that. It's ruining his career. His boss fires him at one point because he's not. I guess he's a writer. Is he a writer or something? I can't remember what he is.
Yeah, it seems like he's a writer, but
he's a newspaper writer. Okay. That's what he is. So he's sort of a writer. But yeah, so he's like, he loses his job. So this phone call is just like ruining his life. It's you know, every aspect of his life, and he's just like kind of a shell of himself. So he finally so this voice, he's on the phone. He's finally, and there's a point too where he's with the girl and they're in bed, and he wakes up in the middle of the night, and his area where he does his work is all like all disheveled, and like his computer's broken or whatever. I don't know. So he's calling the cops, and he's like, yeah, this woman, I don't know who she is, but she definitely broke in. And he's talking to him on the phone, and then he's talking to the girlfriend who's still there, and she's like, well, he did leave me twice during the night. So it's like, maybe he is doing it to himself. Maybe he's sabotaging himself. Because we don't really see the somebody coming in and destroying everything. So there's sort of like, maybe he's doing it to himself. Maybe he's sort of losing his mind a little bit. But no, there is a person on the phone, and like I said, he's lost his job, he's lost his girlfriend, he's lost all this stuff. So he's sort of like, I don't know if he's trying to. He's obviously doing his shtick with women, that he's lying to this woman on the phone, telling her that he really wants her and wants her to come over, and I think he's trying to coerce her to come over so he can sort of prove to everybody finally that he's not crazy. Yeah, and then there's this is actually a twist.
Yeah.
So this is sort of, I'm going to just say what happens. He's sort of like, he's telling her, all right, come over. I want you to come over, and we're gonna finally meet. And she's like, okay. And what happens? The phone bursts open, and this creature comes out, and it's sort of like, it reminds me of something from like Society, that movie Society. Mm-hmm. So it's this mouth and these lips, and it's this sort of weird creature. It's like a xenomorph, but with a face. But it doesn't have eyes. It just sort of has like the bottom part of the lips, and it's sort of like it's like coming out to him, and it's like I love you, and whatever, and it starts kissing him and licking his face and whatever, and it ends with
Yeah,
the,
him
the
basically being a tiger.
admirer, and it's like it's weird. It's just up until that point, I'm sort of with it, and then I'm like, this
Yeah,
is this like phone monster that so it's been living in his phone. That's why it knows everything about him, and it's like so it's
yeah,
like the calls are coming from inside the house in this one, or they're coming from inside the telephone.
but we're back into weird, bizarre territory again
Yeah.
because, like TJ said, you're with it for a while. Like you're thinking, well, is there a woman that knows everything about him and is just trying to get revenge? For
Mhm.
perhaps this is a woman that he done wrong, and in the past, and he's trying or she's trying to get revenge. But no, it's a dang phone monster. Like TJ said, been living in his phone all this time.
Mhm.
Um, and you know, although it's actually got a creature that comes out of the phone, it's kind of like the episode of Tales from the Dark Side, I believe, the where the answer machine takes over Harry Anderson's life. Thing from the
Was that
alternate.
all a clone by the phone? Was that the
Yeah,
one?
yeah, that
Okay.
one. And so it's kind of similar to that until the dang phone monster comes out.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I think things were just starting to, the pieces were starting to fall apart on this show. The puzzle was not holding together now.
No, we're done with the show. We're just gonna do the weirdest stuff from the last season and just sort of like ride it out and go, yeah, this is what you get.
Yeah,
Deal with
so
it.
sorry.
Yeah.
Because this had some really good episodes early on, but now we're just
Yeah.
getting to scraping the bottom of the barrel, it seems a little bit here. But moving on to the next episode, which is the
This is a
movie
better
of
one.
this one I really liked, and I remember this one clearly from watching Monsters years ago. It's one of the few that I remember pretty much everything about it. And it stars Tom Noonan. And I think he's great in this role. And he's basically, I hope TJ doesn't mind if I start kind of go
No, you've been talking about this episode while we've been doing monsters, and I was gonna say, why don't you take this one anyway? But yeah,
So, so Tom Noonan basically plays a guy that just sits around watching like game shows, like Jeopardy type shows or something, and he knows all the answers to all the different questions they ask. He's just rattling them off. Normally, I find people like that annoying, but Tom Noonan really adds something to this because I don't know. Every time he plays a character, he played a character in Tales from the Dark Side too.
yeah.
Um, and his characters always seem about half normal, but then there's another part of him that you look at his eyes and it's just somebody's kind of home, but not all the way home. It just it's very strange, but in a good way. So basically, this episode opens with him and his wife sitting around watching these game shows. He's rattling off all the answers, and the people on the game show are getting them wrong, and he's just as bland and calm as can be. Just it's the Finger Lakes. It's this. It's that. It's the other. And then his wife is like says something like, "Oh, you're just so smart" or whatever. And I'm like,
I love his wife is here and he's up there. There's a scene where she's going to work early in the morning and she's getting ready and she kisses him goodbye. He just bends his head over and she kisses on top of his head because he
yeah,
can't reach her otherwise. But
exactly.
he must be. I didn't realize how she must be very short, but he's looks super tall in comparison.
I
So
think
he's
I think
Frankenstein. So I mean,
Tom Noonan was kind of tall, but I don't think he was that tall. So she probably was pretty short to me. And that's probably, I'm not saying that's the only reason they picked that particular actress for that role, but it just worked so well. And she was sort of flighty and stuff in this episode. This, you know,
She
she
works
was.
for a dentist, which I thought was cute. Just
Yeah, can you imagine all the dentists and her being there? You know,
Mhm.
kind of reminds me of that movie 10 when Dudley Moore's character has to go to the dentist and the assistant that's in there, she
Mhm.
says something in a different language and she said, that means brush your teeth. And she's just so uh, almost too happy, you know. But this lady sort of reminded me of that. A person that's, you know, they act like they never had a bad day in their life.
Mhm.
So anyway, I never was sure that did Tom Noonan know about the finger in the drain? Because of course this is called the moving finger. Did he already know about it from that first scene, or did he just go in the bathroom and it was there? Because it almost seemed like he knew it was there, but he was hoping that it wouldn't be there the next time he went in the bathroom. Um,
I don't know. I just got the feeling this is the first time he's encountered this thing in the bathroom.
okay, so that was probably it. So he
Yeah.
finds his finger in the bathroom drain, and it's like it's just a finger. You know, we don't know if it's attached to anything or anything else. And he gets to where he tries everything to get rid of this damn finger in the drain. And this must be the longest finger in recorded history because it just keeps coming out of the drain and it's just more finger, more finger. You know, there's no end to this finger. And he gets stuff like, I think he tries pouring acid down the drain. There's all kinds
It's
of
a Drano, something like that. Yeah,
Drano and yeah,
a not name brand
no, exactly, yeah, because it.
unclogger, sink unclogger.
So he's trying everything to get rid of it, and it just will not die. It will not go away. It will not disintegrate.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, even though this thing doesn't have eyes, it seems to sense he's there. So can you imagine trying to go in the bathroom to use the bathroom, and there's this finger that, boop, boop, you know, pops up every every time you go in there? It's like there is no way.
And it seems very benign. It doesn't seem like it's like any of the other episodes where it's a creature that's trying to hurt somebody. It just seems like it
It
just
doesn't
yeah.
seem malicious,
Yeah.
no. Uh, but it's just it's there, and it's driving Tom Noonan absolutely crazy. Um, and so I forget exactly why the cops end up coming. I don't know if anybody heard like screaming and yelling coming from
There's
the
this thing where he's trying to cut the he gets like the weed whacker, whatever it is, the head trimmer,
yeah.
and you can hear a neighbor going, "What's going on in there?" So I'm gonna guess the cops were called by the neighbors.
So and I'm gonna go ahead and give the final shot away because this is classic. This is another reason why Tom Noonan was perfect for this because he could do that face. So when the cops do bust into his bathroom, they're coming in
The one female cop that shows up
with a gun, and then you know they're doing the whole thing because they don't know what they're going to find, right?
Yeah.
So she kind of busts in the bathroom, and there's Tom Noonan's character on the floor, sitting back against the wall, with this kind of eerie grin on his face. His face is spattered with blood, and he's got the hedge trimmers, and he's just like that. And that was the ending shot of the
I think he's
episode.
just like, so I'm gonna get cuffed, right?
Yeah. Go ahead and
He's just like he's just tired, and he's just like, yeah, whatever's gonna. And he's just smiling because he's like, whatever's gonna. He's like, I would be like, what the? I don't know what the hell is happening to me, and I would probably be losing it because I'm like,
well, I would think that
he's talking to himself. He's like, there's 5 fingers on a hand, and he's like trying to figure out how big this thing is, like, because it's like,
Yeah,
how big is
because
this creature? What is it like?
it's almost like one of those monsters. If you cut one head off, another one comes back in its place, or
Oh, like the whole hand comes out of the toilet, and it's like it's missing the finger, obviously because he cut it off, and it grabs the cop, and it's like, and then
yeah. So it gets where it's not restricted to just the sink.
yeah,
It's coming out of the toilet and everything. Basically, you're kind of expecting that it will come out of every possible drain in this house, like the kitchen sink drain. It'll come out of the bathtub drain.
yeah.
It's coming out of the toilet.
It's
But
a lot of these episodes is a lot of phallic imagery with long things that extend and are trying to attacking people. It's like, yeah, this is like.
And you probably have to ask Stephen King about that, but who knows? Maybe when he wrote the story, maybe he had like the idea that, oh, this is a phallic symbol here.
It was directed by Kenny Myers, the special effects dude.
Yep, it sure was. But this was probably, if not my favorite episode of the whole entire series, this was definitely my favorite episode of the third season. One, it's based on a Stephen King story. Two, it had Tom Noonan in it. Yeah. And three, it had the most bizarre setup, but I enjoyed it. The finger. Just that one finger, most of the time it was just that one finger coming out. And it's like, damn, Stephen King comes up with some of the most, like, how does this stuff come out of somebody's head? Where does this stuff come from?
It reminds me of the Family Guy joke with it's one of those flash, quick joke things where it's Stephen King, what's your next book? And he's just like, this lamp, it attacks people. Rawr. Okay, have it on my desk by the end of the week. That's kind of like
right. Exactly.
Then it ends up coming out with a book called Cell Phone. I'm like, okay, you're just randomly picking things and writing stories about it.
Of course, Stephen King did do a book called Cell.
Yeah, that's what I was like. It was about a cell phone. I mean, it's like,
yeah.
I mean, what was it? The fourth Amityville movie was about a lamp from the house. Like, okay, sure.
Yep.
And then a clock.
I actually like that one, but because it is so bizarre. And that dang girl in Amityville 4 is creepy as shit. Whenever things start to go awry, she just kind of sits around humming to herself and smiling. It's almost like when Reagan in The Exorcist is starting to get possessed, but she hasn't went full on devil possession yet. And she, there's scenes, these scenes were cut out originally, but they put them back in to the one version where she's in the doctor's office and they're examining her, and there's the whole scene where she's and she just falls on the floor. I mean, that stuff it's creepy because it's so simple. But I understand when they first make a movie, something's got to be cut out of it. But on the other hand, I think that added to the movie. Now, I've heard some people say the stuff like the subliminal demon imagery, like when the lights are flickering and you see Captain Howdy, and when she shuts the door and it kind of goes and you see the demon image and stuff. Some of that I like. Some of it was a little hokey and too much of it.
They happened too much, maybe.
Maybe.
The one where she's in the attic and then you see Captain Howdy in the corner. Like, okay, we get it. All right, we get it. Like,
I think when
the superimpose Reagan and Captain Howdy, like when she's being exercised, like near the end, I think that's good. But just to have him randomly being in the sky, like, there he is in the sky, and there he's now he's on the tree, and now he's in the bush. I mean, come on.
I think when Ellen Burstyn comes home with, I think, medicine for her.
And she goes to the kitchen. There's the thing. It's on the hood of the oven hood.
Yeah, that was a little much. You have all these little Captain Howdies going do 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 do.
Though I watched the YouTube reactor watching it, and it scared him. And I was like,
Oh,
really?
really?
I'm
That
not scared of video. I was like,
so
how did that?
how old was this person? Were they?
He's like in his 20s,
Maybe that's the answer.
mid-20s, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so TJ, is there anything else you want to bring up about the moving finger before we cover these last two?
No, so I was looking at the actress playing the wife, and she's more a voice actor than an actual visual actor. So one of her credits was heavy metal, and the movie the animated heavy metal movie. So there's an episode where this girl gets sucked up by an alien, and then she has sex with one of the aliens. She does the voice of the hot girl. And I'm like, wow. Seeing what the woman really looks like doing the voice, and then thinking of the character, I'm like, this doesn't match up, but like, I guess that's pretty good acting, because you think that she's got a sexy voice, but then when you see the actual actor, you're like, woo, okay.
Yeah. It kind of changes your perspective a little bit.
Like the first time I saw Friday the 13th part 7, I saw her in the credits, Susan Blue plays Tina's mother. And I was like, oh, I know her from a cartoon. She did Transformers, and that was that show Gem. And I was like, wow, thinking of the character she played and then seeing what she really looked like, I'm like, that's different. Okay, sure. I'm not saying she's not, she wasn't attractive. I'm just saying that in comparison to what you play as a voiceover, and then looking at the actual actor, I'm like, okay, wow, interesting.
Well,
anyway.
I think probably when we watched Friday the 13th part 7, of course, she was a mom. She looked like a mom.
Yeah.
And
that feathered 90s hair, or 80s, late 80s, like.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So moving on to the next to last episode is Hostile Takeover, which stars Dennis Christopher in one of my least favorite roles I've ever seen him in, because he is a giant dick in this episode.
He's not a nice guy, but it has Pam Grier in it. Pam Grier is good in it.
Yeah, Pam Grier is in it.
But, he's right up there with the scummy rich. He's Upson Prattish type of.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely hated him in this episode. I was like,
good, he did his job really well.
Yeah, I mean, that proves what a good actor he is. But I don't think I've ever seen him. I mean, he was in Fade to Black, but Fade to Black.
He's not really. He's not a bad guy per se.
Evil that he was put upon and stuff, and bullied and stuff like that. And I'm not saying you should go out and kill people because you get bullied, but I'm just saying in that movie that made perfect sense why he was doing that. But in this, he's just a dick. I mean, he's a total asshole. But yeah, I'm gonna let TJ talk about this one a little bit.
It also has actor Tracy Walter, who's been in hundreds of things. Probably, he was in the "I Spit on Your Grave" remake, I think, the 2010 one.
Oh yeah.
But he's in 31, and he was on a lot of TV shows, and yeah, he's a weird looking guy, but that works anyway. So yeah. Dennis Christopher is this rich mogul business dude. He's taking apart this one company, bit by bit, selling off parts. He's cannibalizing the company, and the guy who owns it, doesn't own it anymore, is like sort of like telling him, you're a piece of garbage basically, and you ruined my life and whatever. And then he goes to see Pam Grier, who's his sort of I was trying to think of something to call her, but she's his financial advisor, let's say. Well, she's a voodoo priestess.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's doing a spell to to that has made him who he is now. He's like, oh yeah, your spells have made me 17 million today and whatever. And he wants to be more and more successful. And she's like the one who's helping him out, but uh, he just wants too much now. And she's like, well, you have to kind of pay for what you get. This isn't a free ride. You don't just get your money, but you don't just get rich and then you don't owe anything. So basically, his soul is now being collected for whatever, and she's sort of the one that collects the soul, and she's basically. He thinks she's just a regular woman, but we find out that she's like 200 years old, and she's like, she even says, "I'm a zombie right now." She's like, "I'm a zombie, and and I'm here to collect your soul." And he's like, "I ain't giving you my soul. Forget it." And he kills her supposedly, but then he goes back to his office, and she's like on his video screen, and he's like on the phone, and he's like, she's like haunting him basically, but like, you're here to be your collection is due on you.
What we've learned about shows like Monsters, Tales from the Dark Side, all that, is you don't mess with people that have something to do with voodoo. You just don't mess with them.
No. Yeah. So, he thinks he's safe at one point, and then the janitor comes in, who was like earlier on. He's like, hey, how you doing? He's like, oh, he's like friendly to the janitor. But then the janitor comes in, and he's like, you okay? You look a little like something wrong. And it's like, no, I'm okay. And then we get the big reveal where so the god, the voodoo god or whatever, who has been the one that's made him rich or whatever, it's come to claim his body, and he turns into this big demon who it's kind of a little bit like the Tales from the Dark Side gargoyle looking kind of thing. Yeah. And I think, like we were talking earlier, like where some of the effects budget, I think the effects budget went to this animatronic head of this cool looking red demon with the big horns and
yeah, because they're getting near the end of the road for Monsters, so I guess they would do that.
So I think it's like, and he's basically, I've come to collect your soul, and I come to take over you now, and it's like that kind of thing. But I think this is not a funny episode, but there's like some comedic moments because it's like it was during like the Reaganomics era of so they make a joke about Reagan's voodoo economics because this is about voodoo. So
I'm just envisioning on Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I'm imagining Ben Stein doing doing that voodoo economic. He's trying to get them. They're totally not interested. The class isn't, and he keeps saying, what do economics, and nobody would say anything, so he's having to go along and get them to say something.
Yeah.
But anyways,
except for Pam Grier's questionable Jamaican Queen voodoo accent, she would have been better not doing an accent, just doing sort of an affected voice. But yeah. But other than that, the acting was pretty good, and like you hated who you're supposed to hate, and
yeah, and I hated Dennis Christopher in that.
Yeah, so he did his job really well.
He did his job perfectly. But just something about Pam Grier. Pam Grier is a cool person to meet, though. I wasn't even planning on meeting her when Steve did, and I just kind of got caught up in the whole thing because Steve wanted me to take their picture together, and she wanted to get me in the picture, and she was like, I think we took 3 or 4 different pictures with her because Pam Grier was like, yeah, let's get the Christmas card picture. And it was so cool. So if you ever get a chance to meet Pam Grier and you haven't, I say definitely go for it because she's really cool. So I don't think I have anything to add to the Hostile Takeover episode besides what TJ said. I mean, Pam Grier was great in it. Dennis Christopher was a dick in it as he was supposed to be. And it's not too bad of an episode for getting near the end of everything. I think this was a pretty decent one.
X-ray. It's funny.
Yeah, Steve definitely has a Pam Grier photo on his desktop. He probably does. I mean, he said before, he said, I have pictures from when I was a little bit of a perv, and in his younger days.
When?
But
Was.
he's probably still got them. So, because I used to watch him like, and I don't want to make him sound like he's a deviant or something, but when we were dating too, it's a wonder I stayed with him watching him do it. But we'd be watching, a movie or something. We'd be sitting there on the couch. Steve was never a little person.
Little per.
So anyway, we'd be sitting on the couch watching a horror movie or whatever. And Steve always had his laptop out. And he still does a lot of the time. He'll be watching TV, watching a movie, but he's still got that damn laptop out. And half the time he's got his face in the laptop. And so I would glance over just to see what he was looking at every once in a while. And sometimes he'd be looking at pictures of either naked chicks or scantily clad chicks. And I would get where I would say, Steve, why are you doing that? And why are you doing that in front of me? I mean, like, I know I don't look like these chicks, so this kind of makes me feel bad, and he gradually got where he didn't do that, or at least he doesn't let me catch him doing that now. But early on, I guess he thought that was the norm. He lived by himself for so long. If he wanted to get his jollies, he'd look at some naked chicks or watch some porn or whatever. But anyway, that's another story for another day, or maybe not for any day. But
if we get on that stream last night, it would have fit in for
it would have exactly.
butt talk. Anyway,
anyway, moving on to this final episode, which is The Maker. So I don't know. Would you call this an alien episode, TJ? Or
no.
Okay.
It's very Twilight Zone. This is the most Twilight Zone episode. It's got a creature in it, which was what was it? Night of the Demons 2. It reminded me of. There's a creature from that reminds me.
Yeah.
That the snake. Well, yeah, the snake creature. I was going to mention something else from one of the other episodes, and I forgot about it. Doesn't matter anymore. But the Malcolm episode. The guy who played Malcolm was in Girls Just Want to Have Fun. It was the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
With Sarah Jessica Parker and Helen Hunt.
I think
and Shannon Doherty.
I think I have that DVD.
And he played like the military dad who, like, you can't dance and you can't have fun kind of character. And I was thinking of the Night of the Demons reference because that's what made it remember that, because before she was in Night of the Demons, Amelia Kincaid, who played Angela, she was a dancer, and she's a dancer in that movie. In the background, one of the background dancers.
You know who her aunt was?
Rue McClanahan from the Golden Girls.
Yep, sure was.
Anyway, but this one has your favorite Tales from the Dark Side actor, Eddie Bracken.
Yeah,
from
he is in it.
Face of the Stubborns,
Face of the Stubborns, yeah.
Yeah, this one was all right. I don't know, for the last episode of the series, it was kind of I think it could have been better, but like I said, it's very Twilight Zone. It's about this guy who comes into this this rundown building, I don't know, office building or whatever it was. I originally thought it looked like there was like a nuclear war, but it was just but it wasn't. It's just sort of a dilapidated old building, I guess.
It did make it look kind of like an apocalyptic type of show or movie.
Because this guy sort of crawls into it. He's dressed in a suit and he sort of crawls into the building. And we meet this guy, Freddie, What was it? I have to read this because I can't. I couldn't remember. J.J. Fredericks. Nickname is Freddy, and the guy who comes in is this guy Mac. And they start, and I was just like, oh yeah, I need some shelter, and Freddy's sort of this drunk guy, drunk homeless guy. Mac is like in a suit or whatever. And they start talking, and we find out that Freddy, as Max says, you're one of them. He's sort of like a guy who can make things appear. He's the maker. He can make things appear. So, but he has a problem. He can't make them exact. Like he makes booze, but it doesn't have it tastes like battery acid or whatever. And
I was gonna say, is it tastes like real cheap stuff that you don't
it doesn't even tastes like nothing. Like tastes like nothing. That's good. It's like there's no taste to it. It's like this I guess like moonshine, like real not mixed with any flavor moonshine. It's like that terrible whatever, like drinking like rubbing alcohol, that kind of thing. Yeah. And then the food doesn't taste. Food tastes like a little. Everything tastes off. And then he's like, then he starts making. He's like, make me a chair, make me bubbles, and he's making all these little things. And then he's like, I got it, make me money. And then he makes like these dollar bills, but it has Mac's face on it, and it says "In Mac We Trust" on it. And he's like, no, I want real money. And then he's like, he just can't do it. Then he's like, all right, I got it, make me gold coins. And he makes some gold coins, but they're almost like the rat candy, but they're just like he's like, no, this is brass or something like that. He's like, this is worthless. And he's like, yeah, I can't make things that are really like exactly.
It's almost like the episode where the Richard Mole was the alien and he was trying to conjure demons, and he kept getting it wrong. So it kind of reminds me of that.
Mm-hmm. So and Mac is just kind of getting frustrated, and then he's like, because like I said, he's a drunk, so he's like, maybe if I get. So the guy's like, maybe if I get you off of drinking, it'll sober you up, and then you'll be able to do better at making things, so he can become rich, whatever. And it backfires where he sort of brings this this person on a TV to life, and it was just like a monster, I guess. And then she turns into this sort of snake creature that attacks both of them. And the CGI, I guess it was stop motion.
Yeah.
It looks kind of cheesy, but it works with the episode because it's not supposed to look really real, and it's supposed to be a guy who can conjure stuff, but he's not really good at it, so it kind of works in that realm. But anyway, the snake monster creature starts attacking both of them, and he can't get it to stop. So Mac decides, all right, I'm going to kill Freddy. So he takes off his tie and starts strangling him to make the creature go away. And eventually, he doesn't have to kill Freddy, but the creature sort of goes away. Because there's a point where Freddy makes something disappear, and Mac's like, I didn't know you could make things, get rid of things. I thought you could only make things appear. So anyway, we come to the end where, he's like, all right, I didn't have to kill you. I'm sorry, I almost killed you. Whoops, my bad. But we find out something that maybe I was surprised when I realized at a certain point. I was like, I should have realized this before. But so like the tip off is Mac. His name should have been a tip off to me, because it's like, what do you call somebody you don't know his name? Hey, Mac. Well, that's the big twist is that Mac is another creation of Freddy.
Yeah. Which
is like, I was like, duh! How did I not figure this out earlier? That I was like, oh shit, he's one of Freddy's creations. I was like, I'm a moron not getting that. And he's like trying to talk Eddie out of Eddie Brackett's character out of, it's like basically not making him vanish. And he's like, no, I'm real. This like, I can't not be real, right? Look at me, And he's like, I'm human, and like there's comments he made like, I'm human. I made a mistake. try to kill you. It's like, no, you're not human. That's where I realized he was fake when he goes, no, I'm just human. I was like, oh shit, you're not human. Why am I not? Duh! I could have had a V8. And yeah, it ends and he disappears, and then Freddy goes back to drinking. And he's like, oh, I'm out of booze. And he like goes up to the bar, like there's a bartender. He's like, bartender, I need another drink, and another drink appears, and he starts drinking the rest of it. And he's like, oh well, I'll try again. Maybe I can make someone else. Yeah, and that's the ending.
If you think about that long enough, that somebody could just, if somebody had the power to just create anything, and they could create a person, and if you were that person and you had memories, and as far as you knew, you were as real as anybody else, and just somebody could just snap their fingers or whatever and make you go away.
Yeah.
That's a scary thought. It sort of reminds me of the movie Multiplicity, when the first clone is made, and the clone thinks he's the real guy, and then the doctor or scientist actually has to come and flip his ear over and shows him in the mirror, no, you've got a tube behind your ear, so you're not the original guy. But he's like, but I remember coming in here, I remember doing all this stuff. So it's just it's kind of creepy when you think of all that stuff, or if somebody had the ability to do something like that.
Yeah. He's like, I'm Mac, and I'm from where am I from? Like, he's like, I don't have a last name either. And
yeah, it's just very, very bizarre. But
it's what is it? It's a Good Life, the Twilight Zone episode where the kid can conjure things up and whatever.
Yeah, didn't they kind of redo that in the movie Twilight Zone, the movie? That kid
that was one of the. They had a version of it. It had Nancy Cartwright, who voices Bart Simpson. Yeah. Where it's kind of funny. She's a character who gets the kid puts her into a cartoon.
Yeah.
Forever, and she it's like that's kind of a prophecy that she basically becomes a.
Kevin McCarthy's in that one, isn't he?
Yeah, he's the uncle.
Yeah, because the kid makes him do a magic trick, and he is having him pull things out of a hat, and all of a sudden he pulls a monster rabbit out of the hat.
That was one of the good that monster was scary looking ass. And also the Dan Aykroyd turning into the monster at the beginning too. Those were like the two. I mean, even the one on the plane, I don't think it was it's not as scary now as maybe when I was a kid watching that episode, but I think that was PG. I think there was some pretty good scary stuff in that.
Nancy Cartwright, as you're saying, Nancy Cartwright showed her boobs in Flesh and Blood, one of Steve's favorites. I don't know if I want to think about Nancy Cartwright showing her boobs.
Kind of short, a little stubby, and I don't know. I
mean, I'm not saying that she was a horrible looking person or anything.
Yeah.
Just saying, I don't know if that's the type of person that you should be having show their boobs, because guys aren't really, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe guys want to look at that. Maybe they want to look at any boobs. I don't know. Especially when they're real young.
I tell you, I love Ginger Lynn Allen, but when she was in, what was it, Devil's Rejects, and she's just sloppy naked, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
I mean, and especially when you know somebody when they were younger, how they looked, and then seeing them like older and like.
Was she the one that was in porn?
Yeah, she was Ginger Lynn in porn.
Okay, so she was the one.
She started dating Emilio Estevez, I think, and then she was in Young Guns 2. And she changed her full name. Her real name was Ginger Lynn Allen. She was Ginger Lynn in the porn, and then when she was in serious films, she was Ginger Lynn Allen. And she did a couple of movies with Linnea Quigley. They did the Police Academy ripoff called Vice Academy, which I think are cute.
Oh, yeah. I think Steve does like Vice Academy.
They're not great movies, but they're kind of fun to watch and stuff like that. And it's very 90s, And
think that Ginger Lynn, I don't hold me to this, guys, but I think back when Steve and I were going to a lot of Cinema Wastelands, we haven't been to a Cinema Wasteland convention in years, but we went to one of them and there was a panel or a Q&A or whatever you want to call it, and Ginger Lynn was there. I'm pretty sure she was there, and she was talking about her porn career,
Mhm.
and she was just talking about all different things. And I mean, she seemed very nice and stuff, but I just could not separate. I had a hard time separating her as a person from all the porn stuff. And so when she kept telling these porn stories and talking about Ron Jeremy and talking about different things, I was like, eh, you know. But Steve,
She was on Howard Stern a lot in the '90s. I remember listening to him,
I
and she
think I
would come up.
remember
Yeah,
Steve talking about that too. Um,
but yeah, her and Tracy Lords were the two big crossovers. Though I think Tracy Lords did bigger movies than
mm,
Ginger Lynn Allen did. Ginger Lynn did sort of
did I ever tell?
stuff.
Did I ever tell you guys that I used to work with a girl at my first library job that said she was related to Tracy Lords on down the line? But the Tracy Lords had showed up to one of her family get-togethers one time, and I was like, "That is so cool." I mean, I like Tracy Lords in some stuff. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily.
Crybaby and
She was in. She was crazy in this, but she was in that movie Skinner with Ted Raimi,
oh yes, yeah.
and Ricky Lake was in that. But
Yeah,
that's a bad movie, but I like it
they
because
all slummed for that movie. They
yeah,
all
I
slummed.
think yeah, pretty much think so. But I have that. I think did it come out on Blu-ray or 4K or both?
I don't know.
I'll have to look at my.
All right, I finally got my Adrian Barbeau.
Hey, I kept seeing that back there, and I couldn't
It comes with the
exactly see.
cross, the giant cross from the
That's
movie.
awesome, and
Yeah,
it looks like
it took
it's
a
a
year, but we finally got it.
good
I'm surprised Garrett hasn't done hasn't done a video on it that I've seen yet.
Yeah, I don't know. I hadn't seen where he did one.
Yeah, but yeah, I was like, oh, finally. So I also have the Blake figure too.
Oh,
From
that's cool too. Yeah.
the eyes used to light up, but the batteries got a little.
So where did you get the Blake figure?
I got it for it was a Christmas birthday present. I would say Christmas birthday because my birthday is like the 12th, and a week and a half later is Christmas. So I was like, I hate that too. But when people come buy my presents, I'm like, no, I want two separate presents. One
Yeah,
for birthday and one for Christmas.
yeah. Some people actually their birthday is actually on Christmas. I wonder what people do for that. Do they have two?
I have a friend whose birthday is on Halloween. I'm like, oh, that's terrible.
Get extra trick or treat candy when you're a kid. That's what you do.
Yeah.
Unless of course you're diabetic or something.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have to eat my last candy critter.
Oh, is that your last candy?
Last one.
Last one.
Cheers to 87 streams of monsters. 98,000 hours of.
Yeah, you guys can go back and enjoy all the fun if you missed anything. And Texas, tell Blissful that about her phone dying. That is perfectly fine. But she loved the stream, so that's good.
Soccer mom action figure.
So, hey, Gory Tiger. Gory Tiger says, "What's up?"
I
Well,
like how her shirt is sort of askew, so you can see you can't tell, but one of her one of her Barbos is out. Oh, I can't wait for the 4K of Swamp Thing because we got the version with the little extra couple of seconds of her her double Barbos.
I
already met her, so I can say things, and I won't be upset if I won't be.
I haven't ever met
to meet her again.
Though. I'd like to, but I haven't yet. I don't know if she's been to any conventions I've been at. I'm trying to think.
I had wished that I didn't think of it till after, but her and Tom Atkins were at a show I went to, and I met them both separately. And I wish I had asked. I mean, they weren't near each other, so it probably wouldn't have happened. But it would have been nice to have a picture with the three of us. That would have been cool.
Oh yeah, that would have been awesome.
Because I had talked to her about, not for long, but because Tom Atkins' ex-wife, who was Marge Gutman in Halloween 3, they had both been on Broadway. They were both in the Grease, the original. She was Rizzo, and I think Garn Stevens was the Jan character, the one that was supposed to be fat in
the brush up.
Yeah. Who was on? She was on the before Rocky Horror was the movie. They had done a New York run, and she was the Magenta, which was kind of, when I found out, I was like, wow, so she's sexy Magenta, and then she's supposed to be fat Jan, and like. It was like,
I never understood that. Because she never really looked fat, but they kept making jokes about it the whole movie.
Well, early in the movie, she's wearing sweaters, but then later on, at the park scene, she's in like a low cut outfit. And I'm like, I guess her diet worked. But yeah, so it was like. It was like, yeah, we was like, oh yeah. When I met Adrian Barbeau, I was like, yeah, you worked with Tom Atkins' ex-wife, and and they were on Halloween, and then I was like, oh, okay, that's cool.
So was Adrian Barbeau pretty cool to meet?
Yeah, like I said, she was very nice. Like I said, I talked about her being on. She had mentioned we were talking about the Grease thing, and she was like, she was nice. She was talking to me, and we were having a little conversation, and she's like, yeah. I was like, how did you feel when they did Grease and Stockard Channing ends up doing your song? Because in the movie version, Stockard Channing was sort of doing like a rock and roll type version of the song, but in the play, Adrienne Barbeau sings the song. Like, she has long notes, and she like really sings, like it's like a Broadway song. And I was like, how did you feel when you heard? She's like, I never saw the movie. So I was at shopping in a shopping center, and I heard the song, and I was like, is this like a Muzak version of my song? And she's like, oh no, it was actual Stockard Channing. And she's like, yeah, that's a different, not that Stockard Channing was a terrible singer. She wasn't a great singer, but she did okay in the song. But it's just like comparing the two versions, she's like, yeah, I didn't realize that was from the movie Grease. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. What did they do to my song? So, but like, yeah, she was very sweet. She was very nice. Like,
I would like to meet her sometime. Dee Wallace is another one that I haven't met, but I've seen her.
She was also very nice.
And
I had asked for, I wanted a photo that wasn't her from a scene. I just wanted her like just like her being just like, posing for a photo. And so I asked some like older guys, like, do you have like sort of a glamour shot? And he's like, what? Like, like where she's just like a publicity photo. She's like, He's like, oh, I'm like, I thought that was sort of like, because I was saying like, I thought that was a thing that like people in the business would say, like a glamour shot. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, oh, now I feel like an idiot. I thought I was using like a word that people would know what he meant.
I mean, what would they, a headshot or what?
I guess a regular headshot would be, yeah.
X-Ray, I agree. Dee Wallace was the ultimate 1980s movie mom.
And she was a 2000s mom too. She played your favorite actress's mom in the Halloween remake. Boy, I was reading an article of how Rob Zombie hated making those movies, and I'm like, why'd you make two of them? Why'd you even make the first one?
If you hated them so much, why did you, I think it was those greenbacks he was getting.
Yeah, but even that wasn't enough for him to, whatever. Yeah, who cares?
So I did want to bring up, well, TJ, did we decide on Friday the 13th, the series? Is that what the next?
We were talking about, yeah, as long as I have to, it's going to take me a while to find the either. Yeah.
So you think maybe a couple weeks, or you think longer? If it takes longer, that's fine.
Give me 3 weeks.
3 weeks. All right. So, guys, we'll probably be back in 3 weeks doing or starting out with the Friday the 13th, the series. No, we're not going to do a whole season in one night anymore.
No.
I decided early on that was a bad idea. So we it's more we didn't go on for 8 hours doing that. But so you guys can look forward to that in 3 weeks. So this weekend, well, first of all, this Friday, I'm going to be doing another one of the drive-in movie nights, and it's the Devil Made Me Do It night. We'll be watching The Exorcist and The Omen.
Woo.
So those of you that like demon possession or antichrist movies, you're going to love this.
If you hate the Lord Jesus Christ, then watch this stream with the terrible devil movies.
I need TJ on there to talk like that. That'd be hilarious.
I can do a not real Southern accent.
You sound like those TV evangelists.
That's what I was going for. Thank you.
Exactly.
Hey, I got one. Yeah.
Oh man. So June 10th, I'm gonna be doing Bloody Birthday watch along. June 11th.
Bring your bow and arrow.
Yeah, exactly. June 11th will be Nightmare on Elm Street 2. June 17th will be the original Stepfather right before the impending Father's Day holiday. June 18th will be High Fidelity with John Cusack. June 24th will be Just Before Dawn. June 25th will be.
I still haven't seen that.
June 25th will be Caddyshack. July 1st will be The Town That Dreaded Sundown, the original Town That Dreaded Sundown. And July 2nd is, I think this was TJ's pick, Slumber Party Massacre 2. And then July 8th, Superstition. How many people, hands up, how many people have seen Superstition? That was a movie I
don't even know.
I watched with Steve when we were still in the friend zone.
You're in Superstition. That's not the song.
But I'd play that song on the stream, but I'd probably get cut off if I did that.
Yeah, no.
There'd be no way.
The bots find the music. That's what gets people in trouble. It's the music. Even if you have something, I was posting something to show somebody, and I had kept it unlisted, and it was like, no, this music from here to here, we're not going to give you a strike because But I was like, it's unlisted. Why are you even bothering to look at my?
They just don't want it out there in any capacity.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, well, geez, but yeah, that's what gets you. From 1982. Okay. No, I haven't seen this.
I hadn't seen it before Steve showed it to me, and I was just like, oh, I got to get this movie. So I ended up buying the DVD, and then after Steve and I were married, the Blu-ray came out, and I ended up getting the Blu-ray. So I'll have to figure out if it's on YouTube or anything so I can give everybody a link. Also, tomorrow night at 10 p.m., and I kind of invited myself to this, but CK told me it was okay. I asked him first. I didn't just say, hey, I'm going to be on there. But I noticed they were doing a fan commentary for Sleepaway Camp 3.
3, yeah.
And I was like, oh, man, I'm going to ask CK if I can be on there with them. And he's like, oh, yeah, sure. And
nice.
I think Jay Real might be on there. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
So, but that's what
I haven't seen him on there for a while.
Yeah. I need to have him on my stream because CK was saying you should have Jay Real on sometime because he's really knowledgeable about the horror movies. And I keep forgetting. There's a lot of people I'd like to have on the stream.
Have you seen his movie Dawn?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Excellent. I think it's an excellent movie. X-Ray says, one day you guys should do Demon Lover and the documentary Demon Lover Diary.
What is Demon Lover? I know My Demon Lover. Is that what he's talking about?
I don't know.
That's the movie with Scott Valentine.
It sounds familiar.
Stacy Keach is in Superstition, but Stacy Keach Senior.
There you go.
I didn't realize there was a Stacy Keach singer, a senior.
And I think one of the Jacobys is in that too. I can't
Okay,
remember Billy Jacoby or I get them mixed up. Or
not the
Billy.
one who was in Tremors, the other old Jacoby.
Yeah, I think so. He goes by Billy Jane now instead of
The
Billy.
one who was in Just One of the Guys.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And Parker Lewis Can't Lose, right? That's the same guy, right?
Oh yeah, I forgot about Parker Lewis Can't Lose. X-Ray says Jay Reel's too busy getting swole to do streams anymore. Yeah, he's showing off his muscles and all that stuff. I was like, when did this become Jay's big thing? All of a sudden, I start seeing shirtless pictures of Jay showing his muscles. He's got some muscles now. I mean, he must really be
Makes me want to go to the gym. I'm still trying to get rid of my 20 pounds of COVID weight. I still haven't gotten away.
Oh, you didn't gain 20 pounds.
Yeah, I did. I was 160 before COVID. Now I'm 182.
I don't believe it, TJ. Either that or are you really tall?
No.
Okay, so I can't really tell because you're usually, you're sitting down. I've seen
I'm 5'7". That's as tall as I am.
Eh,
That's not tall.
you and I think would be the same height because I'm about 5'7". So Steve hates it because he's always like, "Are you standing on your toes, tippy toes, or something like that?" He's like, "You're taller than me," and I'm like, "What in the heck? Why do you worry about?" It? And he doesn't like me to wear boots with.
How tall is Steve?
Heck, I don't know.
He looks tall, like you said. People are taller on. I think CK looks like he's 8 feet tall.
Well, CK's pretty tall because I've, been around him in person several times and stuff like that. And then, of course, I'm not saying that Uncle Bill's real short or anything, but if you put him and CK side by side, it does make Uncle Bill look really short because CK's so tall. But X-Ray, he'd say, Jay is cock diesel. I want to get tips from him. Steve is short only because he lost his shins in
Wow.
Nah, he wasn't in Vietnam or whatever you want to say. Actually, Steve wasn't in any wars, thankfully, but he was in the army for about a year or two. And he said it messed him up. He said he wished he had never went in because it wasn't like he got drafted or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, anyways, guys, we're gonna try to make it under 3 hours because TJ don't want to be made a liar out of because he's got the Mister Under 3 Hours title tonight.
Some people can shut up. No. I know he was kidding, so don't start get everybody getting crazy. I know CK was kidding. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not that. I am high strung, but I'm not that high strung.
And also, if you missed my birthday stream last night, head on over to my channel and watch it because I mean there was some pretty racy stuff in there.
I had to leave. I couldn't deal with the.
Yeah, TJ laughed and went and watched Monsters episodes. And played it safe. Yeah, he played it safe. But yeah, we did have a good time. There was a lot of laughs. We were talking. I think TJ, you may have missed it when we kind of started talking about old Dead Pit stuff, the Saturday Nightmares, and all.
Oh yeah, I'll have to find a timestamp where I can get past the. By the way, when I mentioned the thing about Roseanne, I hope I didn't come off like I was like, I know everything and I'm telling you.
No, okay. I don't think anybody.
I didn't want to get. I didn't want anybody making. I didn't want to come off the wrong.
I want everybody to put in their 2 cents worth about stuff like that because if it's one thing when I get on here, I feel like I bore people to tears because I just talk. So it's good to have not only people in the chat, but people live on the stream with me, so everybody can share their ideas or their thoughts or opinions or whatever. Because that's one thing I want my streams to be, is a place where people can come and say something and everybody not just jump on them for saying that. It's okay to have different opinions and all that. Everybody doesn't need to be the same. The world would be a boring place if everybody was the same. So
I wrote that and I was like, yeah, Kelly, you don't know what you're talking about.
yeah, I don't think anybody thought anything bad about that, TJ. So
Yeah, that last season was a big shit show. That was so bad. I had said in the chat, I was like, it seemed like Roseanne was like the whole thing with Tom Arnold and then the behind the scenes. I think she was taking it out on her characters.
I think it wasn't. I think she was a lot happier when Roseanne started than she was by the end. And I don't know. I think you and I have had this discussion before, TJ. She had came out and said that the studio was making her do all that crappy stuff that was in the last season. But didn't you tell me that she was just kind of trying to blow smoke up everybody's ass?
Yeah, that's what I mean, I wasn't there, but
yeah.
she had a lot of control on that set. There was not to well, I don't want to get past the 3 hours, but she Lacey Goranson, who played Becky, there was one of the seasons she had long hair most of the series, and she was a kid. She was like, yeah, I want to cut my hair, I want to look differently. I'm sick of this. And the studio's like, no, you have to look a certain way. And Roseanne's like, oh yeah. So she grabbed a pair of scissors and she chopped off her hair. And she says, now what are they going to say about it? So for someone to do something like that, you have a lot of say about things. And, I'm sure there was a lot of things she couldn't do, but she had a lot of say about the way the character was and that kind of stuff. That's why when it came back, she's like, because she was more, I'm not talking about the racist stuff she said, but she was more Republican, and the whole Roseanne her character voted for, who, Mr. Orange Face. And I'm like,
that to me was counter. I'll admit that was counterproductive to the whole character that Roseanne was on the original Roseanne show, because her and Dan were hippies. They talked about all this stuff about Woodstock and all these different things, and then for her to do a complete 180 or whatever, and I'm a big time Republican. I always thought that was weird. I'll admit to that. But X-Ray, despite what Roseanne did and said, I think we brought this up last night. She had done stuff for years and they didn't threaten to cut off her show if she didn't leave the show and all that. And then all of a sudden they did. So I do agree that in that sense, they did do her dirty, because they kind of painted her into a corner and said, if you don't leave this show, we're just going to cancel the whole damn show. So yeah, I agree with that.
It went on for what? How many more years? 6 more years as the Connors.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Connors was bad. I read people saying, "Oh, it's a terrible show, and without Roseanne, it's lousy." And I was like, "It's different. They're not the Roseanne show." I don't actually remember. I remember the first couple of Roseanne episodes when they came back, but I really didn't watch it. And then I was just bored one day and started watching the Connors, and I think it wasn't too bad. I mean,
no, I need to go back and watch those, because you're right. It wasn't too bad.
It's just something different, and poor, maybe Sarah Gilbert kind of did some underhanded stuff, maybe, but also Roseanne she was the one that convinced everybody to come back. Mm-hmm. Roseanne didn't want to come back with the show. Mm-hmm. Sarah Gilbert talked to everybody and was like, "Hey, you should do this. It's a good time." And she was like the spearhead that wanted to bring that show back. And then, whatever happened behind the scenes happened. I mean, we're not there. We don't know what happened. And we could say that, you know, bad stuff happened that we heard someone say, but, you know, I don't know. I mean, you know, Sarah Gilbert could be conniving, but Roseanne wasn't complicit, you know, or, you know,
Right.
she was part of it too. So, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But
I always say there are multiple sides to every story,
yeah,
and that's why it's good that if we can respect everybody's opinions, everybody can bring something to the table. There's no reason to argue and fight over and say, no, you're wrong, you know. And
yeah,
I don't like to do that. That's not what kind of streams I want to have. And that's why, you know, even if I don't agree with something somebody's saying, I don't shake my finger at them and say, no, you're wrong or you're stupid or anything. I just keep quiet, you know, or I'll say, we'll just have to agree to disagree on it. And, you know, we just go on from there. But so we can get this under 3 hours.
yeah. Let's yeah. La la la.
Again, I want to thank TJ for being on here with me. This has been it's been a long journey, but I think we've had some fun times doing it. And we'll be back in about 3 weeks with the Friday the 13th, the series. Maybe CK will like that better. I hope. Uh, but I want to thank everybody in the chat for coming into these chats when we're doing these. And I guess TJ, you want to when we do come back in 3 weeks, do you want to keep the Wednesday uh,
Sure.
slot?
If that's good with you, that works with me.
All righty. So on that note, it is 2 hours and 54 minutes. So we're going to do this. I'm going to
Remember,
skedaddle.
the opening song was 12 minutes. So.
I'm going to skedaddle on out of here for the night, and I will see everyone on the flip side. Everybody in the chat, have a good night. TJ, thanks again. Have a good night. And I'm getting out of here. Bye, guys.